This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Many, Mickey, Fishy!
You are listening to the Voices of Wrestling podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
X out and go listen to some boring podcast where they're afraid of their own shadow. Okay? Don't listen to Joe Lanza, because Joe Lanza's not changing.
And Rich Craig.
I like him. Who delivers this guy in a big spot?
Joe, don't yell at me. I like him.
In the big spot, who delivers better than this guy?
Stop yelling at me. I agree.
And we're live. I am Joe. He is Rich. This is the flagship. This is an emergency flagship. Not because of this being the wildest news day that I can ever recall since we've been doing this show, but because we both got married. Our anniversaries are back-to-back days.
We didn't plan this well.
So we never planned this well. The same thing happened last year. Tomorrow, meaning Thursday, is Rich's, what, 6th? 5th?
Oh boy, let me do the math in my head there. 2016, 4th, I think. 4th anniversary.
You think?
No, it's the 4th anniversary. She doesn't know. I would know more than she would, so.
You better know.
No, she wouldn't know. I don't even think she knew it was tomorrow until you mentioned that yours is Friday. Right. Spoiler alert. I think that's when it triggered to me. Oh shit, mine's tomorrow. And then I was like, hey, would you have any plans for tomorrow? She's like, what? What for what tomorrow? I'm like, anniversary. Oh. But I guess, like you said, what are the plans really going to be, with either respective anniversary this year? It's like, we can go order from someplace cool. But
see, that's what I figured. But that's still, you still got to block off the day.
It still carries a little bit of weight. Like, oh, I thought we were going to do blank. Like, she wants to build like a raised garden in the backyard or whatever. And it's like, okay, like I'll do that. You can't just sit on here and you and I talk about Big Japan the entire day. So
we both dabbled in seeing if we can do the show.
You got to always try. You gotta
Thursday or Friday.
Is this 2 for you or this is 2nd, right?
This is 2.
2, okay.
So we both dabbled, you dabbled, and got immediately cut off at the pass by the nurse.
I got it's okay, which, I mean, you know women well enough to know the all lowercase o, comma, yeah, it's okay. Like, that is no, essentially.
Not okay.
Right, just say,
it's not
just
okay.
say no at that point. I mean, that's how I read that. So I went, okay, I got it. So.
And I then dabbled, but that wasn't going to happen because we've had, this planned for weeks now. Not like you can have extravagant plans. I mean, you know what our big plans are for Friday? Our big plans are walking the dogs and then picking up a nice dinner to bring home to eat. But I mean, what else can you do?
I mean, just going to like taking out from a fancy place maybe would be the. That's what I kind of told her as well. I was like, oh man, well we can do whatever you want to do. We can work on the garden, that sort of stuff, and then man, we can order from wherever you want and eat it on our couch as usual. But we can order from somewhere, and it's like, where are you gonna order? You know what I mean? Like, where are you gonna go? It's not like you can go to a fancy dinner. You can order a steak from someplace, I guess, but like, it's not the same when you take it home and it's in styrofoam and you gotta like microwave it to get it back heated up and what. Like, you're not gonna do that. So who the hell knows what we're gonna do?
I mean, the big thing for us is that the quarantined children will be with the quarantined grandparents.
Okay.
So this house will be childless for about a 24-hour period. And as you know, Rich, Joe Lanza will never stop fucking. And there will be a lot of fucking going on in this empty house. And this is not just restricted to bedroom fucking, obviously, without the children around. So
that's true. You can kitchen. Yeah, you got the den could always get in play here.
There's going to be fucking all over this house during that 24-hour period.
You're not an outdoor fucker, right? Silence.
I'm not going to answer that.
Depending on the weather, we'll see. I just mean, like, in terms of what neighbors can see and whatnot. Is it conducive to?
I'm not Kelly. I'm not an exhibitionist, but have I done some things in the outdoors? Have things been done in that backyard? I mean, I don't know. You can judge my tone.
The silence said everything you needed to say, Joe, right there. The 15 seconds of silence on your end. So, well, congratulations. That should be a fun day then for you. Hopefully the weather's
Congratulations
nice.
On the sex.
Yes, hopefully the weather's nice.
There will be lots of sex. I'm sure you'll be having lots of sex as well on your anniversary.
We'll see, yeah. There might be some things that get in the way of that. We'll find out. Well, to me, it's not any different. You know, that's like, I don't have to worry about the kids. Like, we have the dogs, but they're not going anywhere anyway. So, you know, it's without the kids, any day could basically.
Why would
be that,
dogs stop you from fucking?
Oh, that's a long story. That's an hour 3 story. We can go. Okay.
I don't mind if the
hour
dogs
1?
watch.
No, well, that's the process. So, okay.
This is all hour 3. I mean,
that's fine. One of the dogs is perfectly okay with it. One of the dogs will just sit up, chill. He'll be on the other side of the bed. He'll be outside of the, like, he doesn't care. He'll be sitting in the hallway. He doesn't give a shit. No problem whatsoever. The other one thinks that I'm attacking and killing her every single time.
Oh, you got a cock block dog.
Yeah, so he runs in, he starts biting and yelling and screaming and doing all this, and it's like, oh my god. So what we do is, we'll close the door. The problem is, for whatever reason, even the door doesn't lock properly, and I've tried to fix it, and I think I actually get it. Quarantine has helped that, so maybe we can actually do it no matter what, no matter what the circumstances are. But we will close the door, and if it won't lock right, and it doesn't, he will just pound the door until he gets in. So you have, like, you got about 5 minutes of, like, key time to make sure that everything goes, because, like, he's not strong enough to open it in one, but he is persistent. He will not stop. So you got a little bit of time there, or you can just, like, distract him with a treat, and then you can buy yourself, like, another 4 or 5 minutes or whatever. But it is not easy. But I do think I fixed the door now, so hopefully it won't be an issue moving forward. So
you know, if your dog thinks you're attacking her, Craich must be laying some quality pipe.
I assure
nice
you, it's
job.
not.
Nice job out of you. You always downplay
it's
it.
It's all the ass smacking that happens. Yeah, it really gets them going.
You must be laying some quality pipe. I'm proud of you. Tremendous job. But yeah, on the busiest news day in the history of the show.
Let's talk about Rich fucking. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we make Rich tug his collar and feel uncomfortable about his anniversary sex. But this show is live. This is the week 2 of the live Flagship experience, and we are actually smack dab in the middle of this wild WWE news day. So, by the time the non-paying customers listen to the uploaded version of this, some of this may be out of date. We're flying by the seat of our pants. We're getting information as we're doing this show live. We really got thrown into the deep end of the pool with the live show, huh? I mean, geez, week 2, and we're in the middle of one of the biggest news stories really in the history of WWE as we're broadcasting now. So we're not going to have a complete list probably of the talent that has been cut, because I assume these cuts are going to go on for the next probably 48 hours as they contact people and make decisions. When you have people like Drake Maverick getting cut, who just a couple of days ago were announced for a round robin tournament, you could see how quickly this all came together. So Vince McMahon had he spoke to the roster earlier this afternoon, I think at noon Eastern time. And they put out a press release saying that, and look, this is not just in-ring talent. They have released producers, or furloughed the producers is the latest information. And we cannot forget the nameless people who simply work for the company in just a regular 9-to-5 capacity, who are also presumably being laid off / furloughed / fired, whatever the individual case may be today as well. This isn't just the wrestlers or the names that we recognize. So these are massive cuts across the board, and they're also cutting money in other ways as well. A planned move into a new office has been put on hold. As we touched on last week, the XFL has been shut down and has filed for bankruptcy since we last did a show. So there's a lot going on. And, it's the worst part about it is if you listen to people like Dave Meltzer and our own Brandon Thurston, who was on top of this from the jump this morning.
At WrestleNomics is the account you're going to want to follow this week, because nobody's better at this than Brandon.
Yeah, it's this company has the money and presumably has the money coming in. More on that in a minute, though.
Yes.
to where they could have paid these people and then some. I mean, they've got $500 million just laying around that they frequently brag about having laying around, which puts them in a better position than a lot of other companies out there who are letting people go during this crisis. And presumably they still have this network money coming in. But as you astutely observed earlier today and was confirmed through a tweet with Meltzer, Vince McMahon is terrified that USA and Fox are going to turn around and try to adjust those television deals, which are the lifeblood of the company. And if that happens, he doesn't want to get caught with his pants down. So we think that may have something to do with this, whether they're getting pressure from USA or Fox, or simply fear getting pressure from USA and Fox at some point, which we also talked about last week when he made when Vince made the rash decision to scrap taping ahead and go live every week.
Right.
Again, you speculated, we speculated that was out of fear that USA and Fox were going to put the screws to him. We don't know whether they've done so yet. I suspect they haven't, because why wouldn't Vince heel them and publicly say, hey, look, these guys are trying to take away my money. They say they're forcing us into the live content. Why wouldn't he approach it that way if that was the case? Why is he taking all the heat himself? He'd put the heat on the networks.
Right. Yeah,
and they would look real shitty if that was the case. And it'd be a wise move by Vince from a business perspective, because they'd probably back down at that point, because people would say, what are you, nuts? Why are you forcing this company to bring these people in once a week? But since Vince hasn't done that, I have to think he's just worried about that happening.
I do too. Yeah, I don't know if there's maybe there's been a trickle of an information or a little bit of a rumor or a little birdie said, hey, Vince, Fox is looking at this contract and going, we might not have the money to do, like, again, pure speculation. I have no idea if that's the case. Dave sort of alluded to it last week, and I'd imagine all the stuff that we've seen, all the subsequent things we've seen from XFL, shutting down operations to declaring bankruptcy, to Vince McMahon, publicly, having this meeting, and then all these releases and all this sort of stuff that's coming. Really, like, one of the big things to look at, even more than the release, is the moving of the headquarters. I mean, that moving of the headquarters thing has been years in the making. They've been talking about that on these conference calls. And George Barrios saying, well, yeah, that money is shoehorned for, our, movement into a new, corporate facility. Like, they have been wanting to do that for a long time. And now that's scrapped and done and off the table. So that's just nuts that all that stuff's going on. And again, pure speculation on my standpoint. I have no idea. I have no sources. I'm not reporting anything. I have no idea. I do think, though, that whether, again, and it doesn't matter if it's just the fear in Vince's mind or a little birdie told him that, it's still the reaction that this is all happening. And for people to think, oh, it's because WrestleMania didn't have any fans, and oh, it's because, their merch isn't going well, or live attendance isn't going well. None of that stuff was going well for the last 4 years. Like, anybody that pays attention to the quarterly calls, anybody that pays attention to, Brandon Howard and at WrestleNomics and David Bixenspan and Dave Meltzer and all this sort of stuff, or listens to the calls, will let you know that, like, merch, live event attendance, all this sort of stuff. They didn't care about that, because, my God, look at this TV money. My God, who can care about our merch? Because look at this big deals we signed. We just got $1 billion from Fox and $500 million or whatever the hell it was from USA. So it didn't matter what those other things did. The other metrics no longer mattered, because it was just like, yeah, those are down, but my God, look at this deal we just signed. Who cares?
The TV money was going to guarantee profitability, even if everything else completely fell off the table.
Right, and it was, like, I don't want to say completely falling off the table, but the other stuff wasn't doing well. House shows have been doing bad for years. And Vince had to publicly address it. Remember I'm going to do something to change that. And he did absolutely nothing. And he had to go back the next month and go, I'm going to change stuff. And nothing happened, because he knew house shows don't matter. The merch doesn't, and nothing this company in the last year ceased to be a pro wrestling company and turned into a TV content provider company. That's what they were. They became, when Fox handed them $1 billion and USA handed them whatever the hell it was, 500, 600, whatever it was, they ceased to become a pro wrestling company, and they became a content provider for those networks.
And here's why people are so disgusted with the cuts we're seeing today, because they have $500 million in cash in their coffers, number one.
Cash on hand. Yeah.
Okay. $500 million cash on hand. There's no indication that they're not getting the money from the networks yet. Okay. That's all just pure speculation. So, as Brandon Thurston has pointed out, as Dave Meltzer has pointed out, they could still not only be profitable, but extremely profitable, even if they don't run another show this year. a single show in front of fans, they can still be extremely profitable. But what they're doing today, as Brandon Thurston pointed out earlier today, the reason they're doing this is so they can still hit their profit projections. And that has people disgusted. And rightfully so. These moves are being made so they can still come close to hitting their projected profits. And they have an investor call, in 2 or 3 days or something like that?
Yeah, pretty soon, yeah.
So you could, and the stock is up.
The stock's up to 38.9, by the way. It's I think it was, what was it this morning? Yeah, it was somewhere around 37 or 30, low 37 earlier this morning, and now it's up to 38 and still rising. So, yay.
The stock is up as we speak because Wall Street knows with these moves, there's a chance that they could hit their profit projections. Yeah. Despite the fact that they're, WrestleMania would be the next quarter, I think. But
yeah, WrestleMania would not count in this quarter. This is all just Q1 stuff. So
these moves, I mean, they don't have to lay off these people. They don't have to furlough any of these people. They don't have to fire any of these people. And they can still be insanely profitable. You can justify this stuff if their existence, if their mere survival relied upon making these cuts. Then you get that is justifiable. That's not the case here. This not only does not threaten their existence, they could be extremely profitable while still keeping all of these people employed. That is why people are annoyed at this. These are not your, this is not, whatever analogy you want to make, this is not the small business laying off their employees because the owners have $10,000 in the bank.
Right. They're not going to, Vince isn't looking at the payroll and going, oh no, we can't make payroll unless Rusev's gone. Like, no. Yeah.
No, that's not the case here. They're attempting to hit a profit projection. This is absurd. And this is why people are outraged. And we're in the middle of it. And as we speak, there's people getting the phone call. And it's just a completely absurd day because they have a post up on their website, which they're updating as people answer the phone. That's literally what's happening here.
Yeah, we got a DM from somebody who used to work in WWE. I think they worked in the website division. And they said these days are awful. He said, essentially, you're sitting at your computer waiting to update the website and names just get shouted down the hallway. Can you imagine?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Sitting at your computer, Leo Rush. All right. Like,
yep.
God damn, can you just even fathom that?
It's horrible.
Luke Gallows. All right. Oh my God.
Now.
And then your car. And then, thanks for updating the website. You're out of here too.
Yeah.
Shithead, get out of here. Stand up and you're out too.
That's the thing. I mean, it's not like I mentioned at the top because I didn't want to forget. I mean, this is up and down the company. These are your 9-to-5ers too. These are your cubicle jockeys who work in payroll or work in whatever division, finance or whatever. It's these people too. I mean, Vince is in panic mode. It started last week with the XFL thing, and it continues this week with these massive cuts. There is some word that the producers, I think 9 of them in total, were cut. We're going to get to everybody. We're going to break down every single piece of talent that was cut and what we project out in the future for them. We're going to do that. We're going to do that in a minute.
Right. And for the record, you did mention this, but I will do it again. This is 4:54 on Wednesday afternoon or whatever. So yeah, if you're saying, well, dude, they didn't talk about, Roman Reigns or whatever. Well, we don't know. We're doing as much as we can. We have everything refreshed. We're doing as much as we can to talk about it on the air while we're live. But yeah, there might be a guy who gets released after we talk about this. So just, again, reiterate what time we're doing this so we don't get DMs or replies that say, hey, you didn't talk about this guy and he got released. So that just so that's out there.
And this is live Wednesday afternoon, and we can only go off the information that we have as Wednesday afternoon in terms of, there's word going around that the producers who are employees, unlike the wrestlers who are independent contractors, were furloughed as opposed to being released with, the possibility when things get back to normal that they can be brought back. I don't know if that's the case for the office workers that, the nameless people that, we'll never hear about. I don't know what the case is for them. We've also heard through a couple different, even publicly, this was talked about by an ex-WWE writer who would obviously still have friends in the company, that WWE was offering mutually agreed upon releases for people who wanted to be released. And those came with a nice check, Rich. So they were basically paying people. Mm-hmm. They're paying people today who don't want to be there to go away. So, so allegedly some of these people who have been complaining behind the scenes or trying to get their release got their out today. And not only did they get their out, they got a nice little going away present to go with them because the checks are said to be substantial. So it's not, if there's a little bit of a silver lining for some of the people that lost their jobs, it's that some of them wanted to. And, as most of our listeners know, there have been wrestlers who have tried to get released and they've been told no for whatever reason. Well, today was your day if you wanted to be released because they were looking for people to release. And some of these wrestlers who have been trying to get out of the company may have saved the jobs of other people who wanted to keep their jobs by offering to take these checks
right.
and take the mutually agreed upon exit. So to me, that's a little bit of a silver lining when you're talking about, and we'll go down the list, but people like Leo Rush who wanted out, Deanna Peraza tweeted out that she's been trying to get out. So they may have saved two other people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Bennett's another one. That guy publicly asked to be released. They refused. They put him back on TV, if you consider 205 Live TV. And now today he gets his release. That's probably a guy who was raising his hand. Right.
EC3, I probably imagine if was first in the line too to say, yeah, you know what? I'm good. I'll take it.
Yeah. So, it's, but as Brandon Thurston pointed out, and this is very important, very important. This was simply, I cannot stress this enough, to hit projected profits. Now, if that USA and Fox money is threatened to come off the table, that kind of changes the game a bit.
Yeah. Then they're not as solvent. Then that cash on hand is quickly going to be spent.
Right. But what also makes this feel icky, and we have to bring this up too before we move on, is they just basically bribed the state of Florida.
Oh, come on.
To continue
just a mere
running
coincidence,
their show.
Just sometimes a briefcase. No, it'd have to be. I'd imagine when it's something this evil, it has to be the sack with the $sign on it, right? It can't be a briefcase. It's got to be a sack with the $sign on it.
Yes, filled with coins.
Right, exactly. Gold coins. Here you go.
Filled with gold coins. So they just bribed the state. How much was the
$20 million, I believe, was what the Super PAC donated.
So it's Linda McMahon's Super PAC, to get Donald Trump reelected and whatnot, is paying off the state of Florida so they can continue taping 3 shows a week so they can alleviate their fears that USA and Fox are going to take back some of that TV money. They're shitting their pants in Titantown. They're shitting their pants in Stamford, Connecticut today, and that's why all of this is going down. And all of it is very icky. Again, a lot of people are not fans of the McMahons to begin with. They're not fans of WWE. They would love to see them have a day of reckoning. But I think most reasonable people would understand what was happening here if the company was legitimately, if their existence was legitimately threatened. You understand that but that is not the case today.
Right, yeah. If you get a press release that says Fox cuts, WWE TV deal, or Fox takes, SmackDown, cancels SmackDown, story. Absolutely a different story. Then it's like, okay, yeah, they had earmarked $1 billion, and that $1 billion is gone now. It makes sense that, Mike Chioda's then fired or whatever because, hey, we can't afford you anymore. We can't do anything. Like, yeah, but the idea that, like, all the fear and sort of the idea of a projection is what this is all happening as a result of. And that's hard to really, yeah.
The only thing at risk today was hitting their projected profits for the quarter.
Right.
That's
Which, yeah, I mean, there's nothing that makes you more annoyed and more just hate the world than that sort of stuff going on.
And that's why it's gross. And that's why it feels gross to people. And the fact that Linda McMahon's Super PAC paid off the state of Florida just last week with $20 million of money that
Joe, I'm sure that was a mere coincidence that the Florida governor decided the day after receiving that $20 million that WWE was an essential business. Shame on you for assuming that those two things are related.
I was going to drop the allegedly, but Rich took care of it for me. We don't need people coming after me. How dare you? They come liquid out. I'm a thousandaire. I can't have them suing me. So, it's all gross. It all feels gross. And, it's like you could have used that $20 million to cover these people's salaries that you just fired today for the next X amount of months. So that's why it feels gross to people. and because there's some people out there going, oh, well, this is what they have to do, and this is what everybody's in the same boat. No, they're not. This is all public.
Quite
numbers.
literally not. Quite literally, no other wrestling company has had to do this yet.
Yeah, and none of them are in the, and they're in a stronger position than any of these other companies. This is all public, people. And if you don't want to do the work yourself, how many times I got to plug Brandon Thurston in WrestleNomics today? Go read his, is it at Brandon Thurston or at Brandon Howard? It's at Brandon Thurston, I think.
At WrestleNomics. Just go to at WrestleNomics.
And at WrestleNomics. And all the information's there, and it's all just, he breaks this stuff down and analyzes it. He does a podcast once a week for us. He's been real busy lately. I mean, he's pumping out content, more than anybody else on this network. And it's all public. These numbers, I'm not making them up. They brag about the $500 million they have stored away,
and they'll do it in a few days. Yeah, they'll do it at the Q2 call or the Q1 call in a few days for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they could do the right thing and keep these people employed and whatnot. And here's the other thing too. I mean, this house cleaning was a long time coming, to be honest, because they do have way too many people employed, and I'm talking about on screen now, not the people working in the office. That's a different deal, but the circumstances that they're happening under is what the issue is here, and how it all feels. If this virus didn't exist and they were looking at their books and said, guys, why do we have 320 wrestlers under contract? And, and then just this was a standard issue house cleaning, you'd feel bad for Heath Slater and you'd move on with your day. You wouldn't be trying to nail the company to the wall for being unethical. The issue here are the icky circumstances surrounding it all.
Right. This week of all weeks happening, days after the entire roster has to come back on a Monday. You're no ways Jose's who are, sitting in an empty subway on their way to Raw, wearing a face mask because they have to come for the live show, and then they're released. A few days after you give a $20 million, sack of gold coins to the, for a super PAC. Like, yeah, because we've had these before. These things, we've lived through these before. I mean, never to this extent. This is one of the biggest ones. But a few years ago, we had, we talked about it was the Black Thursday or whatever, where a bunch of guys, like 15 people got released or whatever. And it was like, yeah, it sucks all these guys got released and whatever. But there wasn't the vitriol. It was like, okay, well, hopefully they'll land on their feet, all that sort of stuff. It is absolutely the circumstances that are at play here. I mean, that's
circumstances and the fact that you're releasing them into a world where they can't get another job.
Right.
It's you do this a year ago and Heath Slater can go find work somewhere else, and he would find work. You do this now and none of these people are going to be able to go out there and find work. Are they going to, did they all get sent away with a nice check? Yeah. But we don't know how long any of this is going to last, So that's another reason why it feels so shitty. But we're going to go down the list as best we know it as we do this show live at 5 p.m. Central on Wednesday. So, Rich, you got the list in front of you?
I do. I also have a tweet. I also have a pretty good tweet that you'll enjoy too. Kenta G2S on Twitter. Your boy says it's time to show your real talents. Stay positive.
Kenta, great. He's become a great tweeter since he actually was able to wiggle out of the company. He was one of the few that they actually granted a release to. So, and again, this is a good day if you were one of those talents who's been wanting to get out, because this was your opportunity. They feel like they're not in a financial position to hoard people anymore. So. Some people were able to raise their hands and escape.
Right, and it's a quote-unquote good for the rest of the industry. I'm using air quotes all there because it's like, who the fuck knows what's coming in the next weeks, months, days, whatever. But there's now a lot more talent on there when things can go back to normal, if things go back to normal, if these companies, Ring of Honor, AEW, New Japan, local indies, regional indies, like it's the hoarding is at least for now done, and that's good, but it just sucks that these people, like you said, right now, a Drake Maverick, what does a Drake Maverick do tomorrow? Where is that money coming for tomorrow? Heath Slater, what does he do tomorrow or in a week or in a month or whatever? And that's the part that really sucks. You know deep down that eventually, once things get going, a lot of these people will land on their feet and they'll land places. We'll talk about some potential spots for all of them, but it's just like that's one of the silver linings and one of the good things. But it's the fact that what's going on in the world around us. It's hard to feel really good about the prospects of anybody right now. So
look, we're just gonna work under the premise that eventually wrestling and everything else is gonna come back. So when we're doing these, analyzing these people, it's not, it's pointless to go down this list and every time we talk about someone go, well, if wrestling.
Yeah. We're going to the premise that in X insert month here, everything's going to go back to normal and we'll be back to some sort of lives or some sort of normalcy. So yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
All right. First name that we have on this list, Fightful.com, by the way, is the one that is collecting these, I think, in as much real time as they can. I believe they'll be refreshing, so I will be refreshing with them as well. Curt Hawkins, the first one that we announced.
Yeah, so Curt Hawkins, I mean, a lot of these really aren't a shock from strictly a wrestling perspective, right? Because this is a guy that wasn't used much. They got a little bit out. He was one of these guys who came back when they signed a bunch of prelim guys because they felt like they needed television jobbers for Raw and SmackDown a few years ago that had a little bit of credibility as opposed to using local talent as jobbers. So they signed guys that were previously pushed like Curt Hawkins and Jinder Mahal. And it really worked out for Jinder Mahal because he ended up getting a run as a main eventer. Hawkins, they got a little bit out of him because they did the losing streak gimmick.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they got a little bit out of him. But yeah, I mean, this one isn't surprising at all. Now he's got this thing going with Zack Ryder with the the YouTube channel with the toys. So they're kind of building a brand there. So he'll be busy. His indie run wasn't great, to say the least.
That's one way to put it, yes.
So I don't anticipate him being big on the indie scene. He'll probably get your NEWs and places like that.
Yeah, the Northeast Indies will pop him up. And yeah, I think he probably does YouTubes, collects some figures, and does, it pops up on some indies here and there and whatnot. So
professional worker, kind of guy where if he has friends in one of the mid-level companies, you wouldn't be stunned to see him pop up. But at this point, he might be content to stay home, and take his local indie shots and continue to build this YouTube page. I don't know.
He could be a school guy too. I could see him possibly doing like a wrestling school or something.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
He does have a wrestling school. I completely.
Oh yeah, duh. No, he does. So, yeah, I forgot because him and Buck had it, right?
Creative Pro. Yeah.
So he's good.
And now they both have it again. So
yeah, I was gonna say that's right back. That's another guy we're gonna talk about who has that ability too. Big name here that came up and one that really kind of highlight whatever. Carl Anderson.
Yeah, so let's just throw Gallows in there with him, right?
Yeah.
So it was so annoying this morning because Anderson was one of the first wave of names.
Yeah, everyone's like, "What about Gallows?" And it's like, just wait for him to get his call, guys. It's like,
yeah, is this your
Give
first
the guy
goal?
3 minutes? Like he's gonna answer his phone soon, and then they'll announce it. They left a voicemail. He's walking the dog or he's playing with his kid. He'll get the voicemail in 5 minutes, and he will be let go. Calm down.
Did people really think they were going to cut one and not the other and cut the better, more useful one? I mean, it's just, and is this your first go round with WWE cuts? They announce these things literally as people pick up the phone. So look, these guys can call their shot. I mean, they already did a podcast with Rocky Romero. What was the name of their podcast they did before they got sick? Because they already recorded one.
The Talking Shop or whatever, right? Wasn't it Talking Shop?
Yeah, they got one coming out like later tonight or tomorrow. So, and obviously Rocky is the one of the English speaking liaisons to New Japan. I mean, those guys can moonwalk right into New Japan if they want. I would assume that AEW would that's going to be the first two guys they call
for sure
off of the list we've seen so far because they'd fit in like a glove. If they came out on a dynamite in front of fans, they'd get a thunderous reaction from that fan base. And there's a million different things and storylines you could do with those guys. Gallows and Anderson are two guys that you do not have to worry about. They can sit back, call their shot, take the best offer, and I'm sure they got an enormous check to go away, considering that they are two of the guys who recently signed those multi-million-dollar deals a couple years ago.
July 2019, they signed those new deals, and they're already gone.
$1.5 million each for 3 years or something like that, somewhere in that neighborhood, like 500. So, I mean, those are two guys you really don't have to worry about. They're going to be fine.
All right, next on the list, Lio Rush. So Leo's an interesting one. We mentioned him a little bit earlier, a guy that potentially was more than willing to go, and I know a lot of the rumblings are that he might not want to even go anywhere else, that this might be the end of the road for Lio.
He wanted out. So this is a guy who wanted out, And he has been telling people that he wants to get into music, and he may not even want to wrestle moving forward. Now, he did put out a statement on Twitter saying that it's not the last we've seen of him, but also within that statement was a lot of cryptic stuff like, I achieved my dream. I did what I wanted to do in wrestling. I became a household name, which was kind of pushing it. But, you know, if he thinks he's a household name, I guess who am I to tell him he's not?
Text your mom and see if she knows who Leo Rush is, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not even going to waste my time with that one. No offense to the guy.
No, but yeah, I don't. I don't think he's quite on the Ron Jeremy level. So
the point here is he seemed to indicate that he was kind of happy with what he's done in his career. I think getting to WWE and winning the Cruiserweight title and being on Raw with Bobby Lashley and all of that, he seems pretty content. And he's a guy who has wanted out, but WWE were reluctant to release him for his own good because they were afraid that he was just a young guy making a rash decision. So they were holding on to him. They weren't letting him go. But now with these circumstances today, he was one of the first ones because, again, he's one of these guys who raised his hand. So, again, if you're looking for silver linings, don't feel bad for Leo Rush. He didn't want to be there.
A guy that I feel fucking terrible for because of the video, but a guy that I do think, similar to Anderson and Gallows, who I think he'll be okay when it comes down to it. I just know right now it's probably just hurting him like crazy, and hopefully he is able to kind of recover. Drake Maverick. One silver lining, Joe, the Rockstar Spud Impact Beer Bash is back on. It can still happen. It's true. He's got to re-sign with Impact, and Impact has to go out of business. But the Rockstar Spud Beer Bash that we predicted in 2015 or whatever, it could still happen. But
this is a deep cut.
This is for the old schools. Yeah, this is for the old school ones.
Have no clue what you're talking about. But
I don't think we need to explain it. The old cats know it, and I'm not going to WWE this for you. We're not going to hit you over the head. Right. No, if you were there, you know it. If you don't, well, ask around. Maybe you'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's right. You play catch up. Did you see the video he put out on Twitter?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Gut-wrenching.
Awful.
Gut-wrenching. I mean, he clearly – now this is someone who did want to work for the company and remain with the company very clearly. And he was finally getting a chance to wrestle. They just put him in this Cruiserweight round-robin tournament. And apparently he's still taking part in it, according to his video. Now, I don't know if that means they could have recorded the whole thing already.
Yeah.
On tape. Because I think it'd be really awkward to fire the guy and then bring him in for the next 3 weeks to work these tapings. So chances are it's already in the can. So that's newsworthy in itself. And he indicated that not only he was saying in the video that those might be the last 3 matches of his career.
Yeah.
So he's just in a bad place right now. There could be visa issues with him too. That could work in with that, where maybe the only reason he's even allowed to be here is because WWE was sponsoring his work visa. So who knows? But, it's man, I thought we were going to come on this show this week and talk about, WWE Best of the Super Juniors and their little, Cruiserweight round robin they got going. But
I'm looking forward to that thing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it. But it seems
it's not even on the run sheet anymore.
No.
I mean, it's like, but yeah, he's in it. And apparently he's his matches are either taped or whatever, but you're going to see those 3 matches in his block.
Which is really strange because I know a lot of people were pegging him as a potential guy of maybe winning it because how maybe they storyline this thing and he wins it or he makes a big run. And I mean, hell, he might still. We don't know what the hell. Nothing is off the table. So it'd be so weird if it's like, Drake Maverick has won the tournament.
I think he spoiled it though because he said my final 3 matches, which would indicate he doesn't move on.
That's
right?
true. Right.
If they're taped. But this is a supremely talented human being. I mean, I'm not saying he's like a world champion material or top guy, but if you can't find a use for him on a wrestling roster, I mean, this is a guy where if I'm AEW and things get back to normal, I'm on the phone. It's because he'd be effective in so many different roles and has been in his career. Same for Leo Rush. Assuming Leo Rush wants to keep wrestling, he's a guy I at least have a conversation with. If his head is going to be in it and he wants to take wrestling seriously, Leo Rush is incredibly talented. The problem is he truly committed to it? That's the issue. With Drake Maverick / Spud, he's committed. I don't know if his body can handle the ring. Maybe this, he alluded that these would be his last 3 matches. I don't know what any of that means. We know he's had health issues. But even if he doesn't wrestle, he's a super talented guy that any promotion can find a use for.
Yeah, if his heart's in it and he wants to stay in the wrestling business and he wants to do whatever, any company, literally any company that you mentioned could use him in some capacity. Yeah. Whether it's backstage, manager, on-air talent, whatever the hell you want to do, there's something for a Rockstar Spud / Drake Maverick. He
was a great babyface commissioner for 205
Yeah,
Live.
he was great. Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, it was awesome.
Which is like a dead-end role, too. Like, the babyface authority figure is like, it's hard to really be good at that because you're just making sensible decisions. You're not, and that's a hard role to be great in. We saw Nick Bockwinkel in the Nitro days, and it's like, that could have been anyone. We saw, or was it J.J. Dillon? Both of them, right?
Both were, yeah. Bockwinkel and Dillon were both at various points.
And see, they're interchangeable. It's like, it didn't even matter.
Well, I know the difference. How dare you?
Teddy Long in the SmackDown days, just putting together tag team matches and making you face The Undertaker. It's like, it's a hard role to be great at, but he was great at it.
All right, next one here, EC3. I mean, Jesus, has been off television since September. I guess there was rumblings of concussion issues with him. Signed back in 2018, the terrible run in WWE. I'd imagine he probably has an opportunity to go back to Impact if he wanted. I don't know what the situation is there, but he's a guy that depending on where his heart is, I could see popping up somewhere again. I think there's a lot left in an EC3.
I don't even know if that regime is the regime that he worked for, though.
Right, yeah, so, it might be even.
I mean, your Jeremy Borashes and whatnot are with the other company now. So, I don't
For now.
Look, with EC3, I feel like he's a little older than people think he is. And I also feel like his body is just completely shot. He looks the part. He can talk the part. I just don't think he can go.
Yeah, well, and another thing about him, too, is I think people don't remember how much of a quote-unquote WWE lifer he is. I mean, this is a guy who had a long run in FCW before he even popped up in Impact or did anything else. Like, he kind of revitalized his career post-WWE, but I think this is kind of always where he wanted to be. So, a lot of this stuff, and I guess we should preface this right now, I think a lot of people do kind of in their head fantasy booking about a lot of these guys and say, oh, well, that guy will do this, or that guy can do this. A lot of times after these releases, and we all fall into this trap, we fall into it every single time, is a lot of these guys, their passion is dead. They got to the highest high, they got fired, and they're like, you know what? Like Leo Rush saying, you know what? I did everything I wanted to do. I got to the highest point. I don't really want to take indie bookings for $100. I don't really feel like, getting in a car with two of my buddies and driving someplace. Some of these guys might just say, well, fuck it. You know what? Let me go, work for my dad's company. Or, let me go, back and get my degree. And we never suspect that with any of these people. We always assume that X is going to go and wrestle here and he's going to do that. A lot of these guys just say, fuck it. Or maybe they do a few bookings and then they get bored and they say, you know what? The passion's gone. The fight's gone. I'm done. I'm out. So we always have to remember that with these guys too.
And I mean, if you're released, it means it probably didn't go well. So you're a little deflated from that perspective too. It's like you worked your whole life to get to this company and then you dreamed of main eventing WrestleMania. And then if you're EC3, you couldn't even get past main event, and that was after having a long run there in developmental. And to me, he's a guy who I think we've seen him peak. I think that Impact run is going to be the peak of his career. And I wouldn't even be stunned if he just fades away.
Yeah.
That wouldn't stun me at all. And honestly, I just don't think his body can handle it anymore. He was never a great worker to begin with. He was a passable worker at his best. That was before the injuries, before the age. He carries a ton of muscle, which as you get older and you're already banged up is hard. Take bumps on and everything. I don't know. I don't like his future prospects. I'm not bullish on EC3.
Yeah. Next one up, Eric Young is an interesting one as well. For a guy that I think is a lot older than maybe people think as well. Where do you see Eric Young possibly going?
He's another guy who's probably older than you think he is.
He's 40. He's 40, by the way, for those that don't know. So,
actually, he's a little younger than I thought. Then I was going to say he's like mid 40s, but I guess he's not quite that old. But he's a talented guy. I mean, again, not a guy who, in ideal circumstances, would ever sniff your main events. In Impact, at times he had to. And I think he did well. Remember, he was a world champion in TNA. And was he the right guy for that role? Probably not. But did he do well in the role for what they asked him to do? Yeah. I mean, that was really the peak of his career. not just from a perspective of the push, but I thought he was a good performer during that period too. This is another guy where it's going to depend on where his friends in the business are working right now.
Right.
Does he have a big ally in AEW who can get him in the door and maybe he can work dark? Does he have an ally? Does he still have allies in Impact who would bring him in? Scott D'Amore seems like the obvious. I don't. If his relationship is good with Scott D'Amore, I could easily see them bringing him back to Impact.
Oh right. Oh yeah. Geez. Yeah. Those guys have had a lot of years together. So unless they secretly hate each other, something happened during Team Canada days. He does seem like a guy. If I was gonna any betting line, I'd say Eric Young probably goes to Impact, goes back to Impact and does something.
He's the proverbial good, solid veteran hand.
Yeah.
You don't want to push him at this point.
Nah, but there's a lot you could do with him just as a dude.
Yeah, just working with younger wrestlers or putting them on your B shows, or I could see him being employed again if he wants to keep doing it. He's in good shape. It's WWE did nothing with him after they called him up. I mean, he was part of Sanity in NXT, and he was on TV a lot, and was on takeovers. And then they called up Sanity, they broke them all up, and he literally did nothing. I mean, a couple matches here or there on main event, 1 or 2 squash matches on Raw.
Next one here, Heath Slater. This one's gutted, man. He's been there since 2006. Heath Slater's been there. He's a lifer. I think Heath Slater takes like 2 bookings and then he's just kind of done, right?
Heath Slater, now see,
that passion's got to be lost now, right?
I don't know. He seems like a pretty upbeat guy. I mean, I don't know him. That I don't know what he's like in his real life or whatever, but whatever. He's a guy I think I could see him doing pretty well somewhere else. But again, it depends. Does he want to, like you're saying, does he want to keep going? I don't know the answer to that. Do the key decision makers in other places see enough in him? Does, after being on the WWE main roster for what, a decade? It's got to be close to a decade.
2006,
right?
Yeah, 2006 he was signed. I want to say he came up with the Nexus thing, right? I don't know if he may have bounced back and left. Years. Yeah, about 10 years. Yeah, I forget if he bounced back and forth or whatnot, but yeah, it's been a while.
So this is a guy living main roster WWE lifestyle for 10 years. So could I see him taking $150 a match from MLW? Probably not. Could I see him working Impact with their kind of weird schedule? Probably not. If AEW called him, do I think he would go? Yeah, I think he would. The question is there anybody there who sees any value in him? I think Heath Slater is a tremendous enhancement wrestler. I mean, he bumps like crazy. He's very good. From a technical standpoint, he always gets a good crowd reaction. I mean, that's a guy that I wouldn't hesitate at all to put on AEW Dark every week to do jobs. And I'd put him on Dynamite to put people over. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate at all, but I don't know what they think of him. I don't know. Does Cody Rhodes or somebody else have a relationship with him? Because if they do, I could easily see him ending up in AEW.
Right.
But because he's definitely talented enough, and his role is a valuable one as a guy to go on TV and take big bumps and put people over. He's not a guy at this point. There's way too much damage to him to ever push him. I don't think fans are ever going to buy.
Oh no, it'd be laughable. It'd be some people would be making Impact jokes if anybody if AEW pushed him to any degree whatsoever. So
yeah, I mean, with that said, the thing about AEW is they have really earned my trust in terms of how they use people. When it comes to Lance Archer or Brody Lee, who has just shocked the shit out of me how great he's been in all facets. Knowing how to use people, even someone like Billy Gunn. I was just tweeting about that the last couple of days, how they're using him exactly how he should be used. He almost never gets on Dynamite, but he's a veteran who still looks like a major league talent, who he goes on Dark and puts people over. He put over Shawn Spears this week. And what's the harm in having a Billy Gunn on your roster to wrestle once a month, and either put over a veteran or work with a young guy or show his son the role? He's got that little tag team deal going on with his son.
Yeah. It's cool stuff.
So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. They don't,
he's not the world champion. He's not, he's not winning. He's not beating Cody and facing, Boxley at the next pay-per-view. It's fine.
The problem is Impact would bring people in and just push them because they were in WWE at some point. And AEW doesn't do that. They've really earned my trust in terms of how they use people. Heath Slater is a very useful wrestler to have around. So I would trust that AEW would bring him in and use him in the right way. And who the hell knows? Maybe that guy does have it in him to be a legitimate star like Brody Lee is proving to be if he's just, given the tools and allowed to do the things that he's, you really never know until you get these guys in the door and you figure it out. But he's definitely a guy who I think is employable.
Next one here, Kurt Angle. I mean, he's the whole this next run was just it's kind of an aberration. I mean, he's gonna go do signings and all that sort of stuff. He's fine. Kurt Angle will be fine in his life, but I think his wrestling days are.
He's a producer over. Anyway, right?
Right, exactly. He wasn't full time.
Are we done with the wrestlers here?
No. There's many. I'm going in order that they have here, so I'm just jumping back and forth. But yeah, Kurt Angle was listed amongst the wrestlers on here, but we know that he was kind of done as a wrestler. So. Aiden English, so local guy in my area. Aiden English did a lot of local indies before. Signed in 2012. I forgot how long he had signed there. He'd obviously started kind of pivoting towards the announcer role. So that might limit where he's at. I don't know what Aiden English has in terms of like injuries or build up or whatever, why he became an announcer. Maybe that was his only path to getting on TV or whatever. But he's hard to say because I don't know if I have a good read on his health and where he's at.
The health thing, and he could easily be one of these guys who I can see just doing something else with his life, especially so if he's not healthy, because I don't think he did an okay job as a television announcer, but he didn't do the kind of job where I'm like, wow, you got to get that guy in a booth right now. He wasn't a standout. He was average. And as a wrestler, same thing. Like, he didn't blow me away. The tag team with the Vaudevillains, they got over in NXT and it was a nice little act, but he's just a guy to me. And, with his injuries and the fact that he's been out of the ring for a while now, maybe he's not looking forward to getting back in there and taking bumps, even if he's healthy enough to do so. He's a guy I could easily see fading away. Absolutely.
Mike Chioda. 1989, this bad boy came into the company. He'd been refereeing since 1989, the longest tenured referee in WWE history, longer than your Hebners, longer than anybody else. Mike Chioda released, and obviously that's going to probably be it for old Mike Chioda. I doubt he's popping up anywhere. He was as WWE lifer as you'll ever get. 33 years in the company, or 31 years in the company. Just insane.
Is it possible he said, I'll take the check?
Probably. I think he's probably like, you know what? Yeah, I'm good. I've had a lot of years. I like to go hang out with my, wife or whatever. I don't know anything about his personal life, but I'd imagine he's probably ready to hang out.
I mean,
that's a lot. That life on the road, especially for the referees, man. I mean, they do all the travel you do, as all the wrestlers do, and except they have to fucking put the ring together before everybody, and they're gonna take the ring down. Like, that's awful, man. Like they the life of a WWE referee is ridiculous. So I can imagine after 31 years. He said, you know what? Yeah, cut me a check. I'm good. Bye. Like, this is retirement. It's essentially a retirement. So it's hard to get like too upset about Mike Chioda. Like, I hope he's okay. I hope he doesn't mind it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, 31 years, hopefully a good check afterwards. You can't, ask for too much. That's a pretty good life that he's led.
He could have been blindsided for all I know. I have no clue. Or he could have been like, yeah, I'll, because he's the only referee to this point who they've let go.
Right.
So I really don't know.
Sarah Logan.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean,
she's not good, Joe.
She's
not a great wrestler. She'll be great in Shimmer. She'll be very good in Shimmer when she goes back. But yeah, she's not great.
I mean, was she ever going to be a star? The answer is no. I mean, let's be realistic. So, if you're going through and you're cutting people for whatever reason, putting the reasons aside that they're doing this, I mean, she had to be high on the list, right? Of people who, even under normal circumstances, would have been someone in danger of this. So this one doesn't stun me at all. She's got some indie roots. She's got a husband who's, at least as of this moment, still employed with WWE and is in wrestling. So, if he's never home and he's on the road, I'm sure she's going to keep taking bookings. Is this someone who I see AEW or Impact or whoever knocking the doors down to get in a bidding war over? I don't. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see much. I don't see a ton in her at all.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same with you. Rowan has been released. He'd been there since 2011 as well, and yeah, the spider has been killed. So he really had nothing going on right now as well. But yeah, Rowan is released, and he's an interesting one. A lot of people making the AEW connection right away with Luke Harper there. I'm not sure. I mean, I think Luke Harper and Rowan have a pretty decent relationship, but I'm not sure it's enough of a relationship that like he's a guarantee to go to AEW. So I'm kind of curious what does happen with Rowan. I think there's a lot of different ways it can go, and he's got like Noah connections as well, like weird old past Noah connections. So who the hell knows what's next for Rowan? He might be a guy that surprises us and pops up somewhere where we might not really expect.
Well, I think his Noah run was like 19 different regimes ago.
Right, so yeah. I would really highly doubt that he's got Nosawa's phone number on his, his contacts list. But yeah, who knows?
But if you listen to Jericho interview Brody Lee a couple weeks ago, they both seem to have a relationship with him, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know how deep that runs. I don't know if he's coming over for Sunday dinner. But, I mean, Brody Lee did travel with the guy for years and years and team with him in two different incarnations, both with the Wyatt family and then later on as the Bludgeon Brothers. So, those guys have some kind of relationship, and they seem to be on friendly terms based on that podcast. I would not be stunned if he pops up in AEW. I mean, because if you've got Jericho is highly influential in the company, and you've got a pushed act who if Brody Lee wanted him in, and they came up with a good creative idea, either as part of the Dark Order or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think while he's not a guy that I particularly like, I do have to admit that he's much improved over the last few years.
Sure.
Some of his work towards the end of his run, when he was teaming with Daniel Bryan, they were having some really good TV, tag team matches, and he was holding up his end of it. It wasn't just Bryan carrying that stuff, because he was a guy who was a pretty terrible wrestler in Noah, and he wasn't very good his first few years in WWE, and he really did get a lot better. So it's not like I think his reputation is worse than the reality when it comes to his work, even though I don't think he's any kind of super worker. But look, he's not a guy that I would be in a hurry to sign, but would I be stunned if he ended up in AEW? Not at all. It actually wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, where he'll end up somewhere, I think, and I think he's a guy that it seemed like in that interview with Brody Lee, like a guy who kind of has an idea of what's going on, understands the world of wrestling around him, and I hope is a guy that's still kind of hungry to go somewhere. So yeah, I see him popping up somewhere. AEW probably the most likely, but we'll see what ends up happening there.
The guy's like 6'6", and he looks like a pro wrestler.
Yeah, someone will find something to do with this guy. He's not hard to kind of fantasy book in your head of what he could do in any number of different companies.
No, if he wants a job in wrestling, he's going to have one.
I can't believe they actually remembered that these guys were on the roster. Primo and Epico are no longer, Joe. They survived so many things. They had wellness violations. 2010 for Epico, 2007 for Primo. I can't believe that they're finally gone. It's amazing. After everything, they're finally gone.
I mean,
the Colognes are done.
When's the last time either one of them wrestled?
I think Primo did February 2019. He was on a dark match. We did this on not that long ago. I think February 2019 was the last time they appeared in a dark match, and then otherwise they've been doing like Puerto Rico shots and stuff. So
one of them got a wellness suspension,
right? While being Primo got a wellness suspension December 2019, despite having not worked since February 2019. So
his last match with the company was in February of 2019.
Yes.
And Epico's was February of this year.
It was both the same for both of them.
Neither one of them have been in a WWE ring since February 2019.
Yes, correct.
That's incredible. I mean,
good for them, man. I hope those checks were cashing, man. That's hey.
Yeah, I mean, I see now pulling up their cage match. They've worked Puerto Rico a little bit this year, and I assume that's where they're going to end up for now. But those guys are good.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, I'd like to see them pop up in like MLW or something like that. It'd be pretty cool for them. Like, yeah.
You couldn't just see them popping up in MLW.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, they like to they market to Latinos, to Latino fans. So, I mean, it's a perfect fit from that perspective. And just they're the kind of guys that would end up in MLW. They're the kind of guys that you could see them giving a call, but they're talented. I mean, I wouldn't begrudge anyone for giving them a shot, assuming these guys want to do it. So it's just crazy how long they were around, and just like that's just they are like Exhibit A of just hoarding talent. Now, why were they even on the roster to begin with? They had no interest in using either one of them. It's crazy.
Yeah. Mike Kanellis, as you mentioned, we'll add Mike and Maria together here. So Mike Kanellis signed a new 5-year deal, obviously 2019, a guy that was always ready to go, and a guy that like some might think, oh, this guy, he's going to be so depressed. He's a guy who last year said like, I just want to fucking wrestle. Like, I just want to wrestle again. So I am very curious to see what happens next for Mike Kanellis, because he there's a lot of places he could go, and I think he's a guy that's hopefully re-motivated by this and maybe re-energized by this. He's obviously talked about how he's kind of cleaned up his life and whatnot. So I'm very curious what ends up happening with Mike Kanellis. I mean, Ring of Honor obviously is a spot where I think he'd probably be welcome back if he wanted to. He can go a lot of different places here, and I'm very curious what happens with both Mike and Maria. But Maria obviously starting a family and doing that sort of stuff, it might be tough for her to do anything long term, but she'll go wherever he goes, I think, at this point, and that's probably a fine relationship. Is when she's available can be the manager, but where do you see Mike Kanellis popping up eventually?
I mean, I would think he could moonwalk into Ring of Honor if he wanted to.
Yeah.
With some of his buddies still there, the same people are running the place from when he left. It's still Joe Koff, it's still Delirious, so unless he made a major enemy out of Marty Scurll at some point, I don't see any reason why he couldn't just moonwalk back in. Look, he's a guy who, even after he signed that huge money deal, after they teased that they were leaving, still decided he wanted out because wrestling was more important to him than just collecting a check for doing nothing.
Right. What was it, like 2 months after he signed that big deal? He was back tweeting like, I just want to wrestle, guys. Like, the money's good, but I just really want to wrestle. Like,
he said he doesn't care about the money. He wanted to work for it. And if they weren't going to put him in the ring, he wanted to leave so he can go wrestle somewhere else, even if it was for less money. Which, good for him.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would have never expected, Mike the Miracle Bennett guy to be the guy that does that. But credit to him, man. That was eye-opening when I saw those tweets.
Yeah, so he's bored at home and he just wanted to work. He likes to wrestle. And
I think it's actually Miracle the Mike Bennett guy is what I think Pope called him.
Miracle the Mike Bennett guy. Yeah, so right. I'm sure that he was one of these guys who raised his hand, because then, for a while they told him no and they left him home. Then they brought him back, but, he would work 205 Live like once every 3 weeks, Then they'd put him in a program and he would work like every week for a couple weeks. Then he'd disappear again and he'd pop up once every couple weeks. Yeah. So he probably still isn't happy with his workload. He's a guy that just wanted to wrestle a lot. He wanted to be on the road. He even offered to work house shows even if he wasn't on TV. He just wanted to wrestle. And so he's a guy who I can easily see was one of the ones who raised their hand and wanted to go. And he's going to end up somewhere because he's still, young enough and he's in his prime. And I don't think he's a great wrestler or anything like that, but but I'm sure someone will find it. And like I said, I think Ring of Honor is the obvious landing spot. We may as well tie Maria into this.
Yeah.
They either decided that she was just, someone they didn't have much of a use for anymore, or since her husband was leaving, maybe she decided, fuck it, I'll go. Why separate?
Right. She just had a baby, I think February of this year, I want to say.
Yeah.
Hadn't been on TV obviously for a while as she was pregnant and whatnot. So yeah, that's got to go hand in hand. They're not going to keep one and let the other go. So I'm sure she probably was one of the ones saying, "Hey, like if Mike's gone, I'm gone too. It's fine."
High probability that they both asked for it, but they'll stick together. Yeah. And I think it's obvious that an obvious landing spot is Ring of Honor.
Interesting one here is Zack Ryder, 2005. He has been there for so long, as you mentioned. Has the YouTube show and everything with Curt Hawkins. But he was a guy who, I mean, what a career that Zack Ryder had. And I think, some of these tweets have been popped up throughout the day as people have kind of reacted to the news. And he's a guy that maybe now that he's gone and now that we can reflect on it, give this dude the credit he deserves. I mean, back in 2010, 2011, they challenged people to get over, and that dude made a YouTube channel. He made video. He was so ahead of the game. He was being the elite before being the elite was being the elite. He got there. He got popular. I had friends that were casual wrestling fans that knew about Zack Ryder, that were interested about Zack Ryder. You went to arenas and people were chanting woo woo woo. I mean, this guy got himself over, became a guy, and they fucking hated the fact that he did that and fucked him over as many times as possible. Killed him, like quite literally killed him. Remember Kane threw him off the the stage while he was in a wheelchair or whatever, like quite literally killed him and just sent him away. And he ate shit for another 10 years in the company and stuck with it. And now he's gone. And I hope that people do give this guy the credit, because he stuck his neck out and he made himself I don't want to say a star, that might be too much, but he made himself a name, when a lot of people hadn't even thought of using YouTube or doing that sort of stuff to do it. So all the credit in the world to him. It's just unfortunate the way it ended, and now it's unfortunate that 10 years later he's still just kind of a dude on the roster, and at this point was just kind of a dude, just floating around there. But Intercontinental Champion, U.S. Champion, former Tag Team Champion, he's done a lot. But what do you think is next for Zack Ryder?
He seemed like a guy that was happy to be there and didn't really care they didn't have a big role. It's kind of like, during that period where he got himself over, it felt like he was really into the idea of moving up the roster. But once they snuffed that out, it seemed like it sucked all of his passion from a climbing the ladder perspective right out of him. Because you never heard a peep out of him. He'd come to work every week and hardly ever get used. And he seemed to have a good attitude about everything. And he seems like the kind of guy who was just going to stick around that company as long as they would have him. Like Curt Hawkins, as kids, they were friends and their dream was to be WWE wrestlers, and they were. And they seemed to just accept their lot in life. Like, okay, we know we're never getting pushed, but it's kind of cool that we're here, So I don't know if he's the kind of guy who's I can't picture him doing like the trendy indies. I can't see him bouncing around from
I don't think I'm going to see him coming out. I don't see him coming out in the Logan Square Auditorium anytime soon, for sure.
No, it's like
NEW, PW, whatever Pat Buck's thing or whatever they're going to do Northeast. Yeah, he'll be Northeast based, and that's about it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he probably has a ton of money because he's been there forever.
And spend it on figures.
If you see, the Instagram videos and stuff from him and Chelsea Green, like they look like they live in a decent place. He did all right money wise. So I don't know if he's going to be the kind of guy to hop in a car and drive 6 hours for $150. Like,
right. People have to understand that too. And I guess we mentioned a little bit earlier with where, some of these guys just don't do anything, or they just, fade away or whatever. A lot of these guys too have been used to getting flown, hotels, backstage. Like a lot of these guys don't want to hop in a fucking car with 3 of their buddies for $100 at an indie. Like, that's just the realization. Like, imagine you in that position. Like, even if you can afford it, and even if you have the money to do it, some guys just don't want to get out of bed for $150. And I can't begrudge those guys,
No, I could totally see him being a guy.
We all work jobs, and if I got fired tomorrow and somebody offered me fucking 3/4 of what I was making at my current job, I'd probably say, dude, I'll just do this fucking Patreon thing. That's fine. I'll just adjust my, my habits or whatever, but I'm not going to take, or if my current job said, hey, what if we pay you 3/4 of the money we were paying you? I might just say, fuck off. I'm good. Like, I'll figure it out on my own then. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, or just,
it's a grind, man. People don't understand the grind. When you're out of that grind, it's hard to get back into that.
Unless you really, really just really
you gotta love it.
Wrestle.
You gotta be Chris Hero and say, you know what, fuck it. I love wrestling so much that I'll hop on a plane, get off, wrestle, get on another plane, go to the UK. Like he is the all timer of like guys that just fucking love wrestling and will destroy their body for 3 years because they love wrestling so much. And that's what Chris Hero did.
And he's a tape nerd and he just loves wrestling. And it's not that Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins don't love wrestling, but here's the other thing too. If Chris Hero wasn't the top guy on the indies, would he do that? That changes the game too, because he's commanding top dollar and he's doing fulfilling work. I mean, Curt Hawkins is never going to be the top guy on the indies. Zack Ryder, I don't know. It's like, so no, I mean, do I think he strikes me as the kind of guy who would have a really high price just to make it worth his while, and he would work those local Northeast indie groups every now and then. And if AEW called, I'm sure he'd listen. But he's not the kind of guy I think who's going to be, sending feelers to Japan,
right? Yeah,
and trying to get booked in Inspire Pro Wrestling or something. He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy.
He's Ryback guy, I think, like similar to what we saw with Ryback, where he's like, for $1,500 I'll come to your show, and some people will pay that. NEW will pay that. Some other ones, random ones, will pay it, but then they're going to stop paying it, and then he's just going to float off and just do YouTube videos or whatever from then on forward.
And the other problem for these guys that are like that, though, is by the time indie wrestling gets going again, they don't have any more value because they're not fresh off WWE anymore. Right. Now you're just another guy who's been off of TV for so long and out of people's consciousness that no one's going to pay you $1,500 to do an 8-minute match, against Carlito in a minor league baseball stadium in Staten Island, New York. I mean, these guys, it's you strike while the iron's hot when you get released, and there's no striking while the iron's hot right now because we might not see.
There's no iron to strike.
That's right. So like 2021. So that's going to hurt. It's another bad break that some of these guys got.
Yeah, they're not going to get that bump like you're saying. The work the baseball stadium loop in the summer bump that a lot of these guys used to be able to get. That's not going to be.
That could be very profitable, and then charge $25 for autographs while you're there and everything else, and. So the guys that would have wanted to do that, they can't even do that now.
An interesting name that I think a lot of people were laughing at, but I think you have a different take on. No Way Jose.
I think people are going to think I'm nuts. I legitimately think out of the people released, he has the best chance to become a major star on the indies. Because, first of all, he's really good.
Yeah. Big dude, too. 6'3", 245.
Great size. And he can go.
31 years old, by the way, too, just so we've mentioned that.
Right in his prime, okay? And if you don't believe me, because all you've seen him do are 30-second jobs on Raw, go back and watch the few scant times he was given a chance to actually wrestle a match when he was in NXT. He's good. Go back and watch his indie stuff.
Yeah, CWF Mid-Atlantic, I believe.
Carolinas.
Omega, he was doing some stuff with them, too, if I remember correctly.
I'm telling you, trust me on this guy can go, and I know that most people only see him as a television jobber and the conga line, which is like a knockoff of the old Adam Rose gimmick. It's not even an original gimmick that they gave him on the main roster. It's like it was the same gimmick Adam Rose had, and he never rose above being a television jobber. I'm telling you, he already has the indie roots. He already has indie connections. When the indies get going again, if he wants it, he's going to get booked. And he's going to get booked in the places that people pay attention to.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to shake off the bad gimmick. And he's going to have to shake off the years of being seen as a jobber. But in those kind of indies, it's easier to do that because it's a hardcore fan base that's going to be willing to give you a chance. Okay? So
honestly, for one of those guys, it takes like a minute. You come out with the No Way Jose music, you dance around a little bit, bell rings, you fucking deck a guy. You mean business. All right, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take long. A guy makes fun of you in the ring, a heel makes fun of you in the ring, you fucking deck him, you throw a drop kick, you do a tope or whatever, you're already made. You're good,
I'm telling you, this guy's I am high on this guy, assuming he wants it.
Yeah.
Assuming he wants it. And I think he will, because, again, he's a guy who came up through the indies. He's not one of these guys who's a PC. People might not even realize that.
Yeah, he's Wilkins and Lee, I believe, trained him, right? CWF, right?
He's from that area, so you might be right.
See. Yeah. Wilkins and Trevor Lee trained, so that's awesome.
Yeah, this is an
That's a wrestler. That's a wrestler's wrestler, man. Yeah.
I'm telling you, people don't know what they had in him because he never had a chance. And very early in NXT, he wrestled on a takeover. I can't remember who it was against. Was it a takeover or was it a TV match? I can't remember.
He had a TV match against American Alpha. Is that the one you're talking about? It was him and Elias. I do remember that many moons ago, but I don't know if that's the one you're thinking of.
I don't remember. You know what? There's nothing better.
I'll fire it up. Let's do it. Talk through it all.
Lockdown. So this week I'm going to go back and see if I can find, because it's hard because they never gave him a chance, and he got over with the goofy gimmick, and he never. I don't think he had a TV match on the main roster longer than 2 minutes.
He had against Aries at the Barclays Center, Brooklyn.
That's what the match I'm talking about. That's the match that everyone. If you don't believe me, you need to go watch that match and watch him not only hang with Austin Aries, who everyone knows how high I am on him. I mean, I think that guy is one of the best wrestlers of his generation, and No Way Jose hangs with him, and it's like not even close to a carry job. He's not even close to being outclassed. That's the match I was thinking of. He's good. He's good. No Way Jose is one of the guys in terms of indies. Now, there's guys we're going to get to on this list who I think can immediately become stars in AEW or New Japan, but this is a guy I think who can make the biggest indie impact because it's a perfect storm. He has the roots. He came from the indies. He has connections. He's going to get booked. He's really good. He has size. He has charisma. And who the fuck else is on the indies right now? The indies are so dire and stripped down of quality bell-to-bell talent right now. Everyone's getting by on gimmicks and all this bullshit. He's a guy who can instantly...
Here comes our savior, No Way Jose.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. A guy who's doing a low-rent indie gimmick in WWE, it's ironic, isn't it? Because that's the kind of shit... You know what? That's the kind of shit that's getting over on the indies now. He might just keep doing that.
Like I said, it'd be awesome if he does that and then just fucking slaps a dude and then becomes a real wrestler. But he might be like, you know what? Fuck, I'll do a year of just dancing around the ring for a little bit and have people cheer. It depends what he's got. It depends what motivates him. Maybe he's ready to. If I'm him, I want to strip that as quickly as possible because that's only going to last me another, few months or few weeks or whatever. So,
well, the last thing, look, I don't want him to end up in this endless loop of doing comedy matches as Yes Way Jorge. Okay, so he'll I don't want him to be.
You don't have any matchhousens? No, just.
I don't want him to be Yes Way Jorge having matches with Dan the Dad and Alley Cat and all that fucking garbage because that would be his quickest way to the main events, honestly. Because that's all these He'll be main eventing Black Label Pro.
Yeah, I could go see him pretty soon.
A fucking instant. In some cornfield, so that's what he'll be doing. But it's like if he
Crown Point's not a cornfield. Come on.
Whatever. So
I'm just joking. Go
ahead. It probably is. Is it a cornfield?
Yeah, it's more trashy than cornfield. So,
okay. My point here is I don't care about Crown Point, Indiana. Is it Indiana?
It is in Indiana. Yes. Correct.
The point here is that it could go either. But if he chooses to, if he's one of these guys who's like, man, I'm hungry just to get back into the craft. You know what I mean? People probably think we're nuts, but I'm telling you, I am very bullish on No Way Jose as an indie wrestler. And in fact, if I'm AEW, honest to God, I call him. I mean, you gotta somehow scrub the stink off of him. But this is a guy who I think, if put in the right position and brought up slowly, can be like an impactful guy. I really am that high on him.
Another guy I think a lot of people are high on, the most recent one, I think maybe one of the more shocking ones, Rusev, officially released. Rusev is now out and free, and this is the guy that everyone's ready to see what he can do on the indies, what he can do in Japan, what he can do in AEW, what he can do whatever. God, I hope this isn't like a Jack Swagger thing. I really hope it's not a Jack Swagger thing or something like that. I hope this guy's motivated. I hope this guy's ready because, we've been talking so many years now of what this guy could do if he finally was unleashed and finally ready to go. And he's ready now. He can go do whatever he wants. The world is his oyster. But part of me is a little worried that he either doesn't want to do it or isn't motivated or whatever. I have no idea what to say about Rusev. This guy could either be the biggest star in the wrestling in another year or fucking around doing nothing and doing 2 shots right out of the gates and then nothing ever again the rest of the year. I have no idea what the future for Rusev holds.
I don't think Rusev has any interest in working indies. I don't get that impression off of him at all. He's a WWE Performance Center guy. I know he had like 1 or 2 indie matches before they signed him, but he's a homegrown. Would you call him a homegrown? I would.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been there forever. 2010, I want to say he's been there. So, yeah, he's as a lifer as you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, he's a homegrown guy. He also has plenty of money, so he's not going to go nickel and dime working for indies. He doesn't need to do it. I don't think he'll do it. He doesn't have any roots in the indies. My concern with Rusev is his motivation. If Rusev is motivated, he can walk into New Japan tomorrow and have a tremendous 5-year run in New Japan. And that's the only place in Japan I think he'd work. I don't think he's going to show up in All Japan and wrestle Suji Ishikawa. As much as I'd like to see that, I think you're nuts. I don't think he's flying to Japan to work for Noah or All Japan or Big Japan or any of these places. He's not Mike Elgin. Mike Elgin's a wrestling nerd. He'll do it.
Yeah, Rusev is New Japan, AEW, or bust, pretty much.
Yeah, and, Mike Elgin is still an indie wrestler. He's a professional wrestler who makes his living wrestling. I'm not taking anything away from him, but Rusev is a guy who has already made a lot of money in pro wrestling. He's not going to and he's not a wrestling nerd, though. At least I don't think he is. I could be totally off.
Yeah, I've never had any indication that he is one of those guys. I think, I don't know. I think he's one of the better guys that they've ever developed, but that doesn't mean that he's a dude, running over to his fucking Billy account to watch, Noah tapes or whatever. Yeah.
And Mike Elgin does that shit the way
right, Mike Elgin is running over to his Billy account to go see, the latest fucking heat up drop that, the latest Noah Global League drop or whatever. Yeah, that's what he was for his entire life. And yeah, the Rusev has never shown me any indication of that.
So, I mean, I could see Rusev in New Japan, again, provided he has the motivation. And I could see, now look, if AEW doesn't call this guy, they're nuts.
Yeah, I was going to say, the second he got released, I think Cody's probably on that phone, sliding in those DMs saying, hey, how's it going, brother? Like, how are you doing?
Absolutely. And Rusev is definitely not a guy. I do not see him going to Impact or MLW. I feel like he would think that's beneath him, honestly. He's a guy who I think it's New Japan or AEW or bust. And again, it's all dependent on his motivation. He also kind of, I get the impression off of him is it's just a business to him. And it's just, make as much money as possible, which again, those would be the only two real options for him. Could I be totally misreading Rusev? Could he be a guy who's truly been miserable because he wants to go out there and practice his craft and be a wrestler's wrestler? I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I want to be wrong. I want to be so wrong, and I want this dude to be everywhere, just killing it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're AEW or New Japan, if you haven't called him already by the time, this show is happening, then that's a mistake. I mean, this is the pick of the litter of so far of the releases. I mean, this is the guy where you want to call him, see where his head's at. And if he's motivated and all about it, this guy can be a star. So this is the pick of the litter.
All right, so that is as far as the wrestlers go. Here's some other ones that we have heard. As far as the major, main roster wrestlers, backstage producers, Billy Kidman, Mike Rotunda, Dave Finlay, Pat Buck, Sean Devari, Scott Armstrong, Sarah Stock, Shane Helms, and Lance Storm also, quote unquote, released is what Mike Johnson said. Pro Wrestling Sheet says that they've been furloughed and not let go entirely. So it depends on who you believe there.
I would believe Ryan Satin because he basically, for all intent and purpose.
Oh, he's a Fox employee. How dare you?
So, I mean, I'll take Satin's word on that.
I agree. Yeah, I think Mike Johnson's getting secondary news. Most likely, Satin could probably just ask literally somebody in the office and get it.
I mean, it's the same story, just with a slightly different.
Right, fully released versus furloughed, and it makes sense because those names that you bring up there, like a Billy Kidman type, people might not know. Billy Kidman was he was like the right hand second, and like his power was ridiculous. Like he was the main guy at Gorilla, the main guy timing out the shows, the main guy getting stuff ready to go. I know that they had split things a little bit, and he was just doing Raw before he was doing Raw and SmackDown, but he's a big time guy in that company, like a big time dude. So it's possible that, hey, look, if we're not doing live TV, we don't need time, stuff timed as much. Go home. We'll call you when things get back to normal. Like I buy that for sure for Billy Kidman. I don't buy that they just told Billy Kidman to hit the fucking bricks. Bye. And even like a Dave Finlay type as well, even though Dave Finlay's been tweeting, I don't know. He's, apparently he's just joined the Bullet Club, Joe. So,
what?
I don't know. There's a tweet storm going on where I don't think he quite understands what's going on, but, his son is trying to get him to not join the Bullet Club, and members of the Bullet Club are trying to get him to join the Bullet Club.
Oh, so this is just goofy.
I think, yeah. And I'm sure Finlay legitimately has no fucking clue what's going on. He's probably drinking a Guinness going, what the fuck?
Yeah. Deonna Purrazzo was cut.
She was, yes.
So, but again, that's one where it seems like she wanted it. At least that's what she indicated on Twitter, which would also explain why she's been used as a jobber on TV, because she's probably been asking out and they just weren't releasing her for whatever reason. But I guess since they figure her future wasn't long there, they were just going to job her out.
Right. Now
with all this happening, it was an easy, somebody who raised their hand. And supposedly, I'm just going through this stuff now. There's a lot of NXT cuts coming, but they're not going to be announced. Maybe they want to get through TV tonight.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying. Yeah, I think a few tweets going out there that people know of releases, but are kind of like, hey, when are you guys going to announce these? We don't want, like, I think a lot of these, maybe people are hearing names, but don't know for sure. So, don't want to say anything. And WWE does not appear to want to say anything because things have slowed down as we record this. You know that a bloodletting is happening in NXT at some point, but they might want to let people get through TV, which is as vile as this entire day has been. It's just another. Can you imagine?
I think that
showing up for TV, not having any clue, it's fucking terrible. Ugh.
I think next week we're going to come on here and we're going to be talking about a whole slew. I don't think this is over or even close to over.
God, no.
And I think we're going to be talking about a whole nother set of wrestlers and what their future prospects are. So, yeah. And then you've got, like, I know Kushida put out a weird tweet earlier about floating down a river or something like that.
Right.
So who the fuck knows what that's about? I'm looking in our chat right now and someone's saying that there's a cryptic Nakamura tweet out there as well.
He's always tweeting weird shit, though, so who the hell knows?
He is, but it's kind of like Anderson and Gallows and the Canellises, where I could easily see them cutting some of these kind of people who have expensive contracts.
Yeah, right. Expensive contracts, but no value to them. So they signed them so that other people couldn't sign them. So now is a good time to unsign them, you know?
Yeah, and so a lot of these people are Look, some of these people released are just, they would have been candidates for release no matter what. Your Sarah Logans or whatnot. Some of them are people who raised their hand and wanted to be released. And others fall into the category of they're making a shit ton of money and these are budget cuts.
Right.
So, if you don't have, and I think Nakamura would fall into that, honestly. I mean,
for sure. Yeah. He's a big money deal and he's offering them absolutely nothing at this point. Absolutely nothing.
And really the only thing that he offers them is that they keep him away from their two prime competitors. That's really, it's weird, but that's all he has to offer them.
Right. Well, and that's what a lot of these people had to offer. And that's why you're saying, like, under a bunch of different circumstances, we would be talking about how this is actually a good thing that they're now letting other companies sign, without knowing, like, right now it fucking sucks because these guys have nowhere to go and there's nowhere, there's no wrestling business for them to go to. It's just kind of whatever this is right now. But yeah, in any normal term, I mean, this sort of stuff should have happened years ago. They shouldn't have been hoarding talent. They should have not been signing people just so other people can't sign them. I mean, that was always kind of a bullshit thing, and it always kind of sucked for everybody, but it was, hey, good money for new people. The people that, got new deals got a ton of new money. The people that were able to negotiate out of deals got a bunch of money elsewhere. Like, it was good for the wrestlers for a while, but we knew this was unsustainable. At some point, this was going to rear its ugly head. There was some time when you weren't going to just be able to sign everybody just to not have other people sign them. But yeah, it does kind of suck that it's under these circumstances that it finally does sort of end. The end of the road kind of happens here.
They have no further use for Shinsuke Nakamura. They use him as a mid-card guy. He does jobs. The only use they have for him is preventing him from helping New Japan or AEW.
Yeah.
Places where they would utilize him better and he could potentially draw money. We know he could draw money for New Japan. I mean, that's just a given. He'd immediately be a top guy and be a headliner. And he is, he has value for them in America. He's very popular in America. And AEW would undoubtedly find a way to make money with Shinsuke Nakamura. And honestly, people think like, oh, he'd end up back in New Japan. I think he'd end up in AEW because he seems to like living here. And their schedule suits him. It's once a week.
Yeah, dude wants to surf. Like, you know what I mean?
This is one of the laziest men in wrestling. I mean, I think AEW, it would be the natural landing spot. I don't
think he wants to get back on that New Japan bus. I think he's probably good showing up to the show, doing the tapings, doing whatever, showing up once a week, and then going back and doing whatever the fuck Nakamura's gonna do after that. So,
and I guess we should address Kairi Sane because the thing with her is there were rumors she was on the way out before any of this because her contract was coming up.
And this Monday looked like somebody on the fucking way out for sure.
Yes, it did. They conspicuously have begun jobbing her out on top of that. So there have been like dark Twitter rumors and rumblings that she was going to let her contract run out and walk. She lost the tag team titles and then did a very short, embarrassing job on Raw. And then with all of this today, so that she might just be a situation where they're like, well, what are we going to cut her for? Her contract's up in a month. But she could be on her way out too, but there's nothing official on that yet.
So that's all we have right now. I've been refreshing and getting all ready, and it looks like everything's kind of slowed down for now. But like you said, it's you're very naive if you think this is it. There is many more coming. Yeah,
the NXT cuts are coming soon, I think.
And everybody's kind of agreeing that they're coming, and people are saying they're coming, but nobody really wants to put the names out there quite yet, which I get. That makes all the sense in the world. If
we should mention that they're firing writers, too. I mean, we didn't even bring up that group.
Yeah.
I don't remember her name, and I didn't write it down.
Andrea, I believe was her name, is the one. And she was mentioned actually in this Fightful article, too, because she tweeted out about it, and a bunch of the wrestlers all kind of said, thank you for helping me, and, I appreciate it, and all that sort of stuff. Let me get her exact name here.
Get her last name, and I'll talk about her.
She deserves a little bit of credit as well.
We got some DMs about her before it was official, too, because apparently she's the writer who came up with the Otis and Mandy storyline.
Yeah, Andrea Listenberger, I believe, is the name. Andrea Listenberger.
There you go. So she came up with the Mandy Rose Otis storyline, which obviously I can't fucking stand, but
not for us, but it fucking works, man. Not for you and I, but it works, man. It's
clearly
huge.
got over with their fans.
Right.
It was the storyline that got over with their fans, and we were also told that she was instrumental in a lot of the Miz and Morrison stuff. That she was one of the leads on their material, which also gets over with their fan base.
Yeah.
So, apparently, she was pretty good at her job because she got stuff on TV. Number one, and a lot of these writers don't even get anything on TV, and the stuff that she got on TV in certain cases got over tremendously with their fan base. So that's another facet here, even right down to the writer's room. We see people, and she's the only one I think that's been official, but I'm sure there's other writers coming.
Yeah, there's others that probably just don't have Twitter accounts, or, they tweet something out and nobody even notices that they were there. So
yeah. And the writers, the company generally doesn't announce when they let a writer go.
Right.
It's the on-screen talent and the agents or producers or whatever they're called this week. They're calling them producers now, right?
Yes, yeah, producers. So
yeah, so
all right. Well, that was man, that was rough. This has been wild. What a crazy day. I guess, we'll transition to some of the other topics that we're going to talk about today. Obviously, 2AW will probably be back.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to push. No, yeah, this is what we're going to do. We're going to push 2AW to next week again. I don't know what you're laughing at. Respect the 2AW.
I know, I do. There are a lot of people that are very disappointed, and I feel bad. I feel terrible. So
we're going to push the Big Japan. Big Japan is back from the dead. They're going to hold their
during Easter. I love it.
Big Japan rose from the dead the day after Easter.
Yeah, ask questions.
Just like the Lord himself, Big Japan has risen, and apparently they are going to hold their Strong Climb finals. But we'll talk about Big Japan next week because we haven't seen that 224 show that emerged either yet, and that really was going to be the center of the Big Japan segment we were going to do. So we'll hold off on 2AW and Big Japan. There's going to be less and less actual wrestling to talk about, so it's not that big a deal. So what we'll do here, quickly we got to talk about, we're going to do AEW with their Double or Nothing announcement, and then we're going to talk about Noah to wrap it up. I don't know if we're going to do a full 3 hours today.
We might not. I mean,
where are we at right now? Like an hour and a half?
About an hour and a half. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. But yeah, this show was like thrown together last minute, and nobody's really quite ready for this show to happen as it's happening. So, yeah, we probably won't go the full 3 here, but we'll see what ends up happening. So
yeah. So quickly, AEW announced it won't be happening at the MGM in Las Vegas, but they will be doing Double or Nothing in some form, and apparently it will be on pay-per-view. This kind of follows the WWE trend with WrestleMania in that these companies seem reluctant to put off or cancel their pay-per-views because they want to keep their storylines moving. Seems to be the crux of it. Because Vince McMahon threw away a ton of money by doing the empty arena WrestleMania, obviously. It would have been the biggest gate in wrestling in the world this year like it always is, and they, instead of delaying it, I guess with the uncertainty or just wanting to move things along, And we had that conversation a couple of times in the lead up to WrestleMania. Well, AEW is doing the same thing with Double or Nothing. In this case, they're not throwing away a 60,000 fan gate. They're throwing away maybe what would that have drawn? 15, 18,000
I forget.
fans?
Yeah, I forget what the MGM fits right now. Somewhere between 11 and 15. I forget what it does. I think it's all about setup. But yeah, 10,000 plus for sure.
Yeah, nice gate for sure, right? I mean, but they're still going to have it on pay-per-view. Now, I think the differences between WWE and AEW is pay-per-view revenue is an enormous chunk of AEW's revenue. So, these pay-per-views do right around 100,000 buys each at, $50, $60 a pop, at least in the United States. I know foreigners get a better deal on Fight, right? Like $20 overseas.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know the exact prices and whatnot, but yeah.
Point here is pay-per-view is a major part of their revenue,
right,
where for WWE, it's not. I mean, it's pay-per-view is decidedly not a major part of their revenue. It's the television deals and the failed network, which is, the idea was, the network, which basically people forget, but they've thrown the towel on the network. I mean, before all of this, before The Thing took over all of our lives and disrupted society, Vince McMahon was selling his pay-per-view package to over-the-top streaming services.
And launching two of the most prominent figures in the company that like the WWE Network and got it off the ground and supported it and all that sort of stuff. They were launched, and he said, "Yeah, it's for sale. Anybody who wants these pay-per-views, call me. I'll sell them to you."
Towel was thrown on the network. So, but in AEW's case, pay-per-view is a major part of their revenue stream. They don't have the monstrous they have a nice television deal and they got extended, and that's what's making them profitable and keeping them alive. But the pay-per-view is a major part of their revenue. So it's not apples to apples, and people who lack critical thinking skills are going to claim that we're not being fair because we're not approaching it the same. And I don't even know your opinion on it, but in my opinion, it's not analogous. It's two different situations. It's one company heavily relies on pay-per-view revenue. The other does not. And I feel like I kind of see why they feel like they still need to go through with it. And, presumably it'll be in an empty building. I mean, that's almost a near lock. And the question then becomes, how many people will be willing to pay for an empty building pay-per-view?
Yeah.
We know that empty building wrestling has caused, in some cases, enormous hits in television ratings. Monday Night Raw is getting slaughtered. NXT is getting slaughtered. SmackDown and Dynamite, I wouldn't say they're getting slaughtered. They've dropped for sure, but they've kind of leveled off, and they haven't taken the hits that Raw and NXT have taken in terms of television viewers. So you would think that less people would be willing to plunk down money to watch empty arena wrestling. But from AEW's perspective, and this is where I stand on it, let's say they do 60% of their normal pay-per-view business and do 60,000 buys for this pay-per-view. To me, that's reason enough to do it, right? I mean, why not take that money?
Right.
Unless you're coming at it from a moral argument. We should be isolating. Don't bring these people there. Don't bring, listen, that's a separate argument. It's tricky what we do here every week because we still have to break down wrestling and do it from a business perspective and break down the graps. But we also have this other huge thing looming over us that also has to be considered as well. So I've talked a lot already. Where do you kind of stand on going forward with Double or Nothing?
Yeah, and that's actually, this is a question that was posed to me on, I did the Q&A yesterday, the call-in Q&A, a little test of calls, and it went well, and it was a pretty fun show, and somebody asked about that as well, and I kind of said that I don't love the idea. Like when WWE decided that they were going to bring everybody on, last Friday or whatever and take 5 weeks of TV and then everybody could go home, I said, you know what? Perfect. That's exactly what you needed to do. And I applauded WWE even weeks ago when they were taping stuff ahead of time, when they taped WrestleMania 2 weeks ahead of time and stuff. That's, I think, a perfectly reasonable thing to do is, hey, I know this is tough. It kind of stinks everybody, but everybody just show up for this one night or these 2 nights or whatever. We'll tape everything we can right now, and then you can go home, and then you can be safe and be with your families, and we'll figure out what's going to happen in a few weeks. I have no issues with that. I understand why that happened. I understand why wrestling companies have to do that. The issue I have is the live TV. The 3 times a week having everybody come back and show up and get on planes and get on buses and get in cars and sit in airports and that sort of stuff. That's not good. Like, you do not want that. That is just absolutely the worst thing you could possibly do at a time like this. As far as AEW telling everybody, hey, in a month, show up to undisclosed location and let's do a wrestling show, I can't get that upset about that. I really can't. If they're not asking these guys to come here weekly, and we know that they're not anymore, they were, and we kind of called them out on it and said, is that really the right idea? And they adjusted, and they're not doing that anymore, and they taped ahead of time and all that sort of stuff. If these people are able to be home for the next 3 weeks or whatever, I think it is, until Double or Nothing, and then they just have to show up, whoever is on the show has to show up and be there for the show, I'm not that upset about something like that. If it truly is like, hey, look, guys, this is how our company survives. And if you don't feel comfortable and you don't want to come, that's fine. We won't force you to come. But this is what we think we need to do to keep our company alive. That is no problem with me. I have no issues with that. Some companies are saying, my company is saying, hey, if you guys, if one day per week you guys can come in the office, that's good. If you can't, that's fine. I have no issues with that. Some people are going, I'm not. I say, hey, look, I got a nurse coming home every day. I don't really think it's a very good idea for me, to go to the office. And they're saying, you know what, that's fine. That's cool. I have no issues with that. As long as you give people an option and it's like once a month, once every few weeks, it's not the 3 times every week is indefensible. That is, anybody comparing what's happening with WWE going live 3 times a week to AEW saying, hey, on May 23rd, we want, a collection of people to show up for the show at a certain time is, I mean, like you said, it makes no sense to put those together and compare those.
You're not being fair if you think those two things are the same.
Yeah, they're completely different.
You're not being fair. The thing is, whether it was WWE or AEW or anybody else for that matter, Impact, bring up whoever else you want. If they would have done what the original WWE plan was, which is to tape over 2 days for the next month and then everybody go home and we'll see you in another month.
No problem.
I would have no problem with that, provided, you're doing everything safe when you're there, which by all indications they were.
Right, you don't invite Jerry Lawler to show up.
You're not forcing people to come if they don't want to come, which by all indications Tony Khan was doing and WWE was doing. But the problem is a lot of people were wary of Vince McMahon and not trusting him.
Yeah.
To really, where people trust Tony Khan, because he doesn't have decades of fucking people over. His crew kind of trusted him, like Marco Stunt, he was sick, and then his grandfather died. But I think the time he didn't come was because he was sick, and it's like, if you don't have to come if you don't want to. My point here is, if you want to tape every 4 weeks or every 6 weeks with a limited crew where people have a real option whether they want to show up or not, and you're keeping the old people away, and then your crew is going home and they're quarantining themselves.
Right. So if they did get sick, say something did happen, God forbid, something does happen. You're back at your home, you're fine, you're whatever, and your family has to understand, and whatever. Like, yeah, again,
like
that's
Edge
fine.
Said he did, which is what Edge said he did.
I showed up, I was done, and I sat in my house for 2 weeks after that. Perfect.
And I sat in my basement for 2 weeks, and so I would have no problem with these companies continue to run under those circumstances. I don't have a problem with that because that's safe, as safe as it's going to be, and you can go home and quarantine because they don't need you again for 4 or 6 weeks. But that's not what WWE's plan was, to bring everybody together 3 times a week. That's what they're doing. It's insane. It's indefensible. And it's completely different from AEW. AEW taped, how long ago was that now? 2 or 3 weeks ago that they taped in Georgia?
Yeah, we got the wink, wink, nudge, nudge about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then we got the official word about 2 weeks ago that, they filmed all through the rest of the month and through
until
May.
Double or Nothing.
Right? Until Double or Nothing, so. Which
I think is May 23rd or something like that.
May 23rd, yeah.
So now, they're not going to have their crew together from basically early April until May 23rd.
Right, more than a month of time for people to kind of do whatever they're going to do. Yeah.
There's a 6-7 week gap there. And if they do Double or Nothing and then tape their next batch of shows the next day and then send everybody home and then they quarantine, I have no problem with that. I mean, or very little problem. I can't get on them for that. And again, they need that pay-per-view revenue is a big part of their revenue. So even if they project that they're only going to get 50, 60, 40, 70% of their usual pay-per-view business, wherever it lands, I understand doing it. Man, my argument against doing WrestleMania the way they did was that they were throwing away the gate. I mean, I felt they should have delayed it because they were throwing away. In this instance, I feel like AEW is a company that needs that pay-per-view money, and they absolutely should hold the show while sacrificing the 15,000 fan gate. So for all those reasons, I don't have a problem with it. They are certainly being more responsible with their taping schedules than they were in the early going.
Right. And we call them out for it. And people that say you're just carrying water for AEW because you love them or whatever, go back and listen, doofus, to our show 2 weeks ago where we said, what are you idiots doing? Tape all your shows ahead of time. And we got a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. How do you know we haven't been taping them? And we said, okay, then prove it. And they did. And they're good. So we
were screaming at them to tape. We were screaming at them to blow off dark and spend those time and resources taping Dynamite. We were screaming about Jake Roberts being there. And now, if you notice, Roberts and Tully Blanchard, those guys weren't there.
Jim Ross hasn't been there.
They didn't bring all the... So they adjusted as they went along. And look, we're all learning as we go along with this bullshit, okay? But most of us are learning and moving in a positive direction. Then you have Vince McMahon, who's going backwards, and he's bringing his whole crew together 3 times a week, every week, after paying off the state to do it.
Hey, now, unrelated.
Allegedly.
Thank you.
So it's like, you're not being fair if you think these situations are the same. Ring of Honor went out to Vegas, canceled their pay-per-view, filmed a couple of empty arena matches, which they haven't even bothered to air, and sent everybody home and said, we'll see you in 6 months. MLW, we're not doing, that's it. When the Mexico footage is gone, we're done. New Japan hasn't done a thing. They didn't fuck around with empty arena. Nothing. They just keep canceling shows, and they're going to keep canceling shows. Okay? So there's other companies here who have learned as they've gone along and are really doing some smarter things. And maybe everybody wasn't handling it perfect before, but there's only one company who seems to be moving backwards and is regressive in all of this. And I'm sorry if that just happens to be the one that we always bang on. Well, maybe we wouldn't always bang on them if they made better choices.
Right.
Okay? It's we're not witch hunting them. They do this to themselves. You can't possibly see the news today and think we're being unfair to these guys. So, that's where I am with Double or Nothing, and that's why it's a completely different scenario.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't have a problem with it. And I'm sure that they'll either tape the day of before Double or Nothing, or they'll tape after. They'll have a plan.
Yeah, and it's fluid too. Like if the world goes into a fucking disarray or whatever the hell happens in the next month or whatever, if it's truly like completely irresponsible for them to do the show, they're not going to do it. They're just getting ahead of the game now and saying, hey, look, we're going to be here for May 23rd, so we're it's just getting ahead of the game and sort of saying that we're going to be there. But yeah, you don't think that if things get like really ridiculous, and I have no indication that they will or they should or whatnot, but I think that they're smart enough and know enough that yeah, they'll adjust. It's like this is in concrete now in stone where if something happens, they'll adjust. They won't do the show if they need it.
We didn't bang on WWE last week when...
No, I credited them. I said they were doing the right thing.
Yeah, just tape it all now.
They had the best idea. Get everybody here Friday. Let's bang everything out. Everybody go home. I was like, boom, you guys nailed it. Good, perfect. Vince McMahon throws his headset down and says, fuck it. Scrap that episode. Everyone's here every week now for 3 times a week. Like, like that. Last week I said they were doing it right. I've been saying they've been doing it right for a while. I thought WrestleMania was the perfect idea of how to do that. Great idea. Someone like Edge can now go home and sit in his basement for 2 weeks or whatever, which isn't ideal, obviously. But if it means that much to him to wrestle, and it means that much for these guys to get it there and help the whatever it is, like whatever scenario, whatever's motivating people, I have no issue with the company saying, "Hey, look, if you want to do this for us, that's great. Come do the show and then go home and be with your family for the next month or so." I have no issue with that whatsoever, provided it's within the what that wrestler wants to do, and that wrestler has that option to do it or not.
Listen,
and that's what this is.
Like, I'll be into Double or Nothing.
I'm gonna fucking watch it, man. Somebody said, "Would you do this?" And I said, "Fuck yeah, I would do it." I'd have TNT get all the muscle behind it because what the fuck else do they have? They don't have any NBA first round. The NBA playoffs are supposed to start, I think, like in a week or in a few days here.
Yeah,
it was supposed to start. Today was the final day for the NBA regular season, so the playoffs are starting in a week or so, or a few days after this. You don't think TNT is hungry and ready for live sports on their network? So I say put all the fucking muscle you can and say, look, May 23rd, an unprecedented event. We're doing a pay-per-view level, a big-time show. Come watch it. Forget about your child, all that sort of stuff. Whatever.
They're not putting it on TNT. They're putting it on pay-per-view.
Well, that's what I mean. Well, I mean, like, but TNT could be, I think it's still on BR Live and that stuff as well. You know what I mean? Like, that's still kind of their property.
Yeah,
that's still their property. So, quote unquote, or whatever. So I think, like, them driving people to purchase it on BR Live or whatever isn't against anything either. I know it's not going to show up on TNT.
Whatever happened to the BR Live shows?
Yeah, I don't know. That it's kind of a shitty app. So I think it's still on there, but nobody uses it because it's a bad app.
Because I disagree strongly with the people that are saying make Double or Nothing a TV special. Why would you throw away that revenue?
No, I agree. Yeah. For the record, I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying TNT advertise it because it is one of your properties, and it hopefully gets some eyeballs on it and stuff. Is all I was saying there.
Yeah, but it's like that argument I don't understand because it's like, well, if you're going to do the show, then there's no reason not to make it a pay-per-view. Why would you give it away for free? It doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, don't even do the show. I mean, I don't get it. That never made any sense to me. If the idea is, oh, well, people aren't going to be into the idea of buying a pay-per-view right now, I get that. I think it's going to do way less than their usual level. I mean,
sure.
I just talked about that.
Yeah, if they're smart, they'll adjust that price too. I don't think they can, in good conscience, charge 50 or whatever. They got to put that down a little bit. As
we learned with WrestleMania, it's not always their choice because we had cable companies all doing different things. Some were charging $50 per night for WrestleMania. Others were offering a package to buy both. So it's kind of like these cable companies. It's like, I think you can, it's like anything else. I think there's like a suggested retail price and then the cable companies do whatever the fuck they want anyway. So I don't know how much control you have over that. It's not something I'm real informed on, but it must not be a ton because you saw the cable companies basically all going rogue when it came to WrestleMania and how to handle the two nights. Mm-hmm. I think there were even a couple cable companies that only offered Sunday. They didn't even offer Saturday, which is completely bizarre too because I guess they had other shit already scheduled and they didn't figure – because remember, WWE pay-per-views don't do very well anymore, so it's like they can't boss people around the way they used to in the old days. So whatever fucking apartment wrestling bullshit they had scheduled for Saturday, you ever see what some of those pay-per-views are?
Oh, yeah, the Bloody Wrestling Wars 12. I'm like, what the fuck? Or yeah, it's like, Wrestling Vixens, Rip It Off or whatever. You're like, what in the world? Who watches these?
What are we watching here?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's actual, there's fucking porn. What's you can get any fetish porn you want now. Why are you watching? It'll be so much better than, whatever this fucking scantily clad wrestling is, I don't know. But
there's always weird Impact ones that I have too, where it's like Impact Wrestling's greatest matches of 2016. And I'm like, who's ordering these?
I mean, I guess somebody.
One night only, Impact Wrestling one night only. Those are finally done, right? The one night onlys.
Yeah,
I think so.
Damn it, don't want those. Yeah,
right. I think they still show up on my cable thing. I think they're just showing the old ones all over again. So
they show them on the what's that app? The
Pluto.
Yeah, the Pluto channel. They show the one night onlys, the older ones. They show Explosion, old Explosion.
Right. I stumbled upon it the other day, and it was Petey Williams in an Explosion match from 2011.
You can get some Okato action.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, all right, that's pretty cool. I'll watch this.
Yeah, but so that's Double or Nothing. And like you said, if the world just continues, if shit gets worse, they'll fucking cancel it. If shit gets better, then they'll keep moving forward with it. I don't see the big deal here in saying our plan is to continue on.
Right. In a month and a change, we're gonna have a show. That's all they're saying here. To compare it to, hey, every single week, all of you need to fly here. 3 times a week is ridiculous.
Quite honestly, they have to get together at that time to tape their next batch of TV anyway. So, again, why not just do the fucking pay-per-view? Right. And who knows whether I don't have the release in front of me. Who knows whether it'll be live or not too? I mean, they could very easily be sneaky and have the thing be taped and just creatively never say that you're live to get around. I mean, there's so many different possibilities. So, that's the AEW Double or Nothing. And I guess we'll see. I guess we're going to get the finals of the TNT tournament on that, which is undoubtedly going to be Cody and Lance Archer. I feel really bad for Lance Archer and Brody Lee.
Matt Hardy.
You know, they debut in front of no fans, and all three of those guys would have got, you know, enormous pops from those AEW crowds, particularly Matt Hardy. I mean, you know, they would have went insane for him. You know, you feel bad for guys like for the same reasons I felt bad for some of the people on the WrestleMania show. And look at poor Drew McIntyre. I mean, he has no chance. I mean, nobody's watching Raw. All 3 hours under 2 million this week. He doesn't have a chance. And he's gonna, you know, partially pick up some of the blame for it, I'm sure. You know, and it's you know, the guy, he didn't get his pop, and he didn't get a chance to look like a megastar, which is so important when you're pushing a new person. That perception that they're a huge star, you know, and he never got that, and it all got off on the wrong foot. And that title will be back on Brock before you know it. It's just a matter of, you know, when they get Brock down there to beat the guy. But, you know, I did say I was on Wrestling Omakase, Rich. Did you know that?
I did know that, yeah.
I was on the Omakase this past week. And a little plug-a-root there. Go listen to that. But we briefly talked about, you know, the thing. Do you think? See, I think WWE is going to get shut down. I don't think. I think eventually there's going to be some force. I think they're getting shut down. I think whether it's picking up too much mainstream.
I agree. It is. The problem, though, the big issue is the federal government's basically said, you know what, states, figure it out on your own. And that's got me worried because it's Florida.
Yeah, but someone's going to pressure Florida. I mean, whether it's...
Florida already said that churches are exempt, and nobody really... People said, you guys are fucking dumb. What are you doing? And they really haven't stopped. So it's hard to bet against Florida, man. That's all I'll say.
I know. Listen, I know Florida's a cesspool when it comes to this stuff.
Right.
But when you're getting national media attention now...
Right.
And when all of this heat is coming down on you...
Well, the heat will come from... It'll be like UFC where, like, Fox has to step in and say, what are you guys doing, man?
Well, that's what I mean. I think there'll be some force. I don't know who.
Right.
Whether it be political, whether it be someone on the WWE side or...
But no, I agree. Yesterday, they were taking heat from CNN. There was... Once the non-wrestling folks, and I even mentioned this on the Q&A, I'm nothing against your David Bixen fans and those sort of people. They can scream and get nuts all they want and complain about it. But once it's getting covered by political people going, wait a minute, what's this Super PAC thing going on here? Wait, what's WWE? Like, they flew way too close to the sun, and they got way too much publicity for it.
Your point here is people should be listening to the David Bixen fans, but they don't.
Right. They think, wrestling, what a goofy little wrestling thing, whatever. But this one, for whatever reason, probably because the Super PAC connection got people going, oh, wait a minute, what are you doing? What's going on here? And I was seeing it picked up by a bunch of places that were not wrestling related whatsoever. So that's tough.
Major mainstream political reporters are going to get involved. This is why I think it all falls apart. Especially now when you have like Bob Arum and Dana White like picking up the phone to call Vince to ask if they could use the Performance Center.
Right.
It's going to get too big. They're not flying under the radar anymore, is my point. And it's to me at some point, whether it's this week, next week, especially with them being in the news today, I think there's a good chance that in the next week or two, their plan of, running 3 times a week is, I think the state is going to turn their back and shut them down. Because I think the state is going to be put in a position where they don't have a choice. There's too much pressure. But I guess we'll see. As we transition to what are we finishing up with here? The
Noah Global League. Let's talk Noah, baby. Let's go.
The Global Tag League. So this thing is done. Okay, these were only 2 blocks of 4, so there weren't a ton of matches to get through. I watched the first 3 nights. I haven't watched the final 2 nights yet.
I've seen the first 4, I should say. I actually just noticed that I watched 4. So
okay, excellent. First of all, this tournament is not even happening if the parent company of DDT does not purchase Noah. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This is happening. It's airing on Universe. It wouldn't even, this tournament wouldn't even exist. Noah would be in a dire situation right now if they weren't purchased some months back. So yeah, you're very lucky, first of all. Or they'd be trying to just run rogue the way that Big Japan is, and it'd be a big mess. This is organized. It's on the network. It's on their network. And, they continue to run in that little building there with no fans. And we have their new overlords to thank, really, because otherwise this tournament's not even happening. Some surprising results. I don't think anyone would have picked He held the Dr. Wagner Jr. and Rene Dupree to come out of that A block before this tournament started. So they finished in a tie at the top with 4 points with Kano and Masakita Miya. But by virtue of the head-to-head win, they move on with Kaito Kiyomiya and Shuhei Taniguchi, and Marufuji and Mochizuki finishing with 2 points and tied for second place, I guess. And then the B block, and this will be your final. It's Axis, Go Shiozaki, and Katsuhiko Nakajima, overcoming the big upset on night one. I couldn't believe it. I guess we're going to talk about it. They win the block with the 2-1 record with the tiebreaker over Takashi Sagara and Shrek Sakine. So it's going to be Hiho D. Dr. Wagner Jr. and Rene Dupree versus Go Shiozaki and Katsuhiko Nakajima.
Just as we all predicted, of course. That.
Can I tell you, though, Rene Dupree has looked good.
He's looked pretty solid. Yeah, I remarked, I thought it was pretty funny that night one he wore trunks that said Loner on the back, and I was like, oh, that's an ominous beginning. But this team, they've been pretty good, and they've looked pretty good, and Rene Dupree's looked pretty solid as well. So
that's what I mean. I mean, Rene Dupree has looked way better than I thought he would in the tournament, but it's still pretty surprising to see them come out of the block as the block winners to go to the final here. But as far as the tournament itself, I saw the first 3 nights. You saw the first 4. I guess we can quickly. I mean, these shows only have 2 matches each,
right?
So they're quick, easy watches. I think one of them is like night 3 is like 39 minutes long. I mean, they're a breeze. It's just 2 matches. I think one of my big picture criticisms, the matches have been too long. I mean, as we've learned with the empty building wrestling, shorter
and mostly bad too. I think it's another problem.
Not a lot of it's very good, but I think part of that is because they've been so long. Because like we talked about last week, the longer these empty arena matches go, the harder it is for them to hold your attention all the way through, and you just don't have that. Shorter is better. Now they have the intensity. They're knocking each other's heads off in some of these matches. The problem is all of the matches have been like over 15 minutes for the most part, when really all of them should be below 15 minutes. And I'm sitting here watching these and I'm thinking, well, there's only 2 matches per show, so maybe they're just trying. But then I'm like, but wait, there's no fans. It doesn't matter. You don't need to go long to provide a show because we're all just watching a stream anyway.
Right, and like you're saying, the other thing too is like they're not uniform lengths too. Like the one show was, like you said, like half the length of the other shows. Like one show was a full 60 minutes, and then night 3, because the opening match was 3 minutes and the closing match was like 18 or whatever, it was done in 30 minutes, and you were out there. So it's not even like they have to fill the hour time slot like you're saying, or they're saying, oh, every day is an hour, or every show's an hour. It hasn't been that way, so that doesn't even make sense.
No, as far as empty arena goes, I'd put them firmly behind Dynamite. I'd put them firmly behind what we saw out of All Japan. Was this better than what WWE has been doing? It's close.
Slightly, but not a ton better.
The intensity of the work has been good. It's just if the matches were shorter, I'd put them ahead of WWE. They do have the tight camera shots. So that's a plus. But again, some of the matches, like you said, just haven't been good. Night 1, we're treated to Masao Inoue right away in the opener. I mean, this guy stinks.
So
he stunk when he was young, and like now he's old. It's
do people ironically like him, or
very few. He's the kind of guy where most people, even your hardcore pro elitists,
like you can't really lie to yourself anymore, right?
No, they acknowledge he's bad, but you can go real deep. Like there have been people who have gotten mad at me for saying he stinks, and they're like, well, he had the greatest GHC title match of all time. Remember that comedy match where he almost won with the roll-ups against But that one, I mean, in real, like, stop.
Right.
That's not the greatest GHC title match of all time.
Stop watching wrestling if that's your greatest GHC
title match. It's just another one of those things. It's like the Yano effect.
Yeah, that's the best G1 match ever. Okay, fuck off. Go away.
Yeah, exactly. Like, a shitty wrestler found a way to have an entertaining main event, you don't have to go any further than that. It's just a shitty wrestler finding a way to have a decent main event. But people have to just exaggerate things. But no, I think he's someone who everyone recognizes as shitty and has always been pretty shitty. Akitoshi Saito, I mean, he's still an acceptable pro wrestler. He's
slowing down a lot, though.
He is slowing down. You're right.
That in this match, it was really glaring, and I remember watching it in real time. And there was a point where I think he was going for like some sort of snapmare, or he was going to do some sort of neck breaker, and Go Shiozaki's laying on the mat, and Akitoshi Saito bounces off the ropes, and he's coming back to give him the snapmare, the neck breaker, whatever. And I swear to God, Go Shiozaki has to look behind him to see if Saito's still coming. And he is. Okay, cool. And then he takes it. It's just like, it was comically long. It's like, oh man, like this guy just to bounce off the ropes and get back to where he was took like, 15 seconds, and that is like a lifetime in pro wrestling. So he's starting to slow down a little bit, unfortunately.
He is starting to slow down.
He was better than Inoue. I'll give him that. Like, no matter what's going on, he was still 1,000 times better than Inoue in this match. But yeah, you're starting to see it a little bit with him.
He's still passable, but he is slowing down, and he is 50.
Yeah, he's 54. For God's sake,
he's 54 years old. Yeah. I mean, and he's never been like he's never been a CrossFit master. He's never been particularly
right,
great shape. So I mean, but the problem with this match was I'm watching it, and I watched it. I came in blind, and I'm like, this is way too fucking long. This match is ridiculously. These two guys should not be going over 10 minutes, let alone over 15 minutes. But then they won, and I'm like, oh, okay. So Shiozaki and Nakajima are going to win the next two, and that's exactly how it played out. But so then I was like, it's a little more acceptable. But again, because my whole idea was, you've got your world champion, and you've got Nakajima, who's a top guy. You've got your two tippy top guys. They should have squashed these two old men.
Yeah, it was like, I said it was like comical watching like Go Shiozaki have to be like, oh no, I'm being, my arm is being, pulled by, like you're saying, it should have been bing, bing, bing. These guys kicked their fucking heads off and beat them. It made I couldn't believe that Go Shiozaki and Nakajima, both guys in their prime, would have trouble with Akitoshi Saito. It was just, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like, and you really see, They had to slow down for these guys. They couldn't work at their usual pace. They're old and they're not good. But look, too long. Not a good match. And then we had Mochizuki and Marufuji beating Kiyomiya and Taniguchi. Much better match.
Yeah, it was solid. Nothing spectacular, but solid.
Yeah, it's just a different. It was worked at a different speed than the previous match, and that was fine. And then quickly on night two, we got our first look at Rene Dupree, who looked shockingly good in this tournament. I mean, look, I've never had anything against Rene Dupree, but you don't know what you're going to get out of a guy who you barely ever see wrestle. And they beat the Congo combination on the first night. That's Kano and Masa Kitamiya. And then Sakine and Segura beat Daisuke Sekimoto and Yoshiki Inamura. Sakine, he's a guy who has a cult following.
You got to explain this guy to me. I thought I thought Muhammad Yone had got run over by a car or something. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And I had to look, and I now see a little bit about him, and he's an interesting fellow. But yeah, what's the background here?
Sakine has a great look, and that's really as far as it goes, because he's terrible. I mean, he's a terrible pro wrestler.
Not good at all. Yeah.
He's got here's what he has. He has a great look and a legitimate background. Now, for some people, a legitimate background is all it takes. Some people are just marks for anyone with a legitimate background. I'm not. The problem I have with that is I like when guys have legitimate backgrounds if they're also good.
Yeah, I also like when they're good wrestlers. Yeah, I'm watching wrestling. I'm not watching MMA, so I don't give a shit.
Because that adds another dimension. If they're a good wrestler, and they have that legitimate background, that absolutely adds another element. Plus, he's old. The other thing is he's old. He's not a very good pro wrestler, but he does have a great look. I remember, I don't think it was on the show because we've never talked about him, but behind the paywall, I talked about him when he was with All Japan, and he was brutal there. He's brutal here, but he does have an annoying cult following because of his look.
Looks like he lost his last 4 MMA fights too, which I always find funny that just existing in MMA is oh, this guy's a real shooter or whatnot. But it's does it matter if they lose all the time?
Yeah. I know. Look,
it's like the Josh Barnett thing. Josh Barnett, oh, you got to respect the real fighter. It's like he loses and he tests positive for steroids every time. No, I'm not going to respect him. This guy's won a fight since 2015. Fuck out of here.
But he has an interesting look. He almost has that acromology look, but as a non-giant.
Yeah.
And his nickname, they call him Shrek because he looks like Shrek.
He does look like Shrek, yeah.
He's got the big facial features, so he looks like Shrek. And look, he's entertaining to a point because he has such a great look. And every now and then he'll throw in a cool-looking throw or something, but it's too few and far between with him. But he's part of Segura's group of fucking shooters that he's got going on now, so that's the deal with that. And they picked up a win on night 2 in their opener. And then night 3, Sekimoto and Inamura got on the board because they beat Saito and Inoue. And you knew Saito and Inoue were just going to go 0-2 the rest of the
For
way.
sure, yeah. There was no way. I got a little worried on night 1, and then I had to realize and think to myself, of course, I know what's going to happen here the rest of the way. So
no, by that point, it's like you knew by the result of that match, okay, Axis is going to win their last 2 and win the block. I mean, and the other 2 guys are going to lose both their match because they have to. Because if they win another match, they have the tiebreaker. So it's like when you see the upset night 1, you know how the rest of the tournament's going to play out. So then this I thought was the best match out of the match.
Okay. I thought you said you didn't. I thought you said you only saw the first 2 nights, and I was so upset that you hadn't seen this match yet. But you saw
I got through night 3 while we were setting up because it was only like a 39-minute show. Remember, I told you, I can go in a half hour. This is why.
right. Not because you had to do something, but because you were watching Noah. So I love it.
Watching Noah with no fans. So Kano and Masakita Miya versus Masaki Mochizuki and Naomichi Marufuji. These 2 teams beat the living shit out of each other. I should also note, before we talk about that, Sekimoto and Inamura squashed Saito and Inoue the way that Axis should have squashed them on night 1. 3-minute match. They went in there, they killed these old fucks, because Saito and Inoue, they're not even the kind of old guys you have to protect. It's not like it's Yuji Nagata. It's not like it's Satoshi Kojima, where you got to give him a little respect. Masao Inoue has never gotten respect. So you can squash that guy and it's not even disrespectful to like his history. You know what I mean? So they did the squash, but this Kano Kitamiya versus Mochizuki Marufuji match is the best match that I've seen so far. You'll talk us through night 4, but oh my God, they beat the living fuck out of each other. Marufuji's actually putting effort in this tournament, which is surprising with no fans, right?
Yeah, I was kind of I couldn't believe he was doing that either. I was watching this match. I'm like, all right, buddy, there's no fans, man. You don't have to do this, but I'll take it, man. I like it.
Yeah. So, they beat the living shit out of each other here, and they did the KO finish with the high kick.
Fucking love it.
So, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm gonna look it up, didn't Kano beat Mochizuki by high kick knockout in the singles tournament too?
I think so. I remember that happening, but I can't confirm. I wonder how we could find that out.
Look it up. I'm going to look it up right now.
I think if you just look up referee decision, oh man, that didn't come up.
I just put up singles match between the 2. I know.
I see what you're doing. Okay. Yeah.
So
let's Joe and Rich in real time.
People love this. Don't worry about it.
Search on Cage Match. It's going to be great here in all the chat room.
God, I love it. It's okay. I messed. Mochizuki beat Kano by knockout. Wasn't that how it was? Because Mochizuki won the match. I know that match had a knockout, is what I'm saying. Or maybe it didn't, and I'm just remembering wrong. But Kano won matches in the N1 with the knockout.
Here you go. Okay, Nakajima beat Kano by ref's decision, but that was in 2017. That might not be the one you're thinking of.
No.
Yeah,
in the 2019 N1.
Okay.
Kano had some matches that finished via knockout. And I think Mochizuki may have knocked him out, and now Kano is knocking him out as a receipt.
Got it.
I think.
Yeah, they did have a match, but I can't confirm that was. I don't remember if it was via knockout. So.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's the deal there, and why they did a knockout this time, because I think Kano is getting Mochizuki back for knocking him out. I think. I could be off on that. But
either way, it fucking rocked. Either way, it fucking ruled. Yeah, I was like,
great,
I was kind of down on this globally. I'm like, oh man, this stuff's not really working for me. This stuff's not quite working. And then fucking Kano gets ready, launches a kick, he drops his ass. The referee looks at him, nothing back, boom, over. And I loved it. I was like, yes, the globally,
waves it off.
It's back, baby. Let's go.
Yeah,
more of these. I want more knockouts.
To me, that was out of the 6 matches I saw, that was the top match. But I think the best team I've seen. Well, those were the 2 best teams in the tournament to me, with the stuff that I saw.
Yeah. I don't think anything from the night 4 is going to change. because it was Kiyomiya and Taniguchi versus Dr. Wagner Jr. and Rene Dupree. It was okay. I think the first match with Dupree and Wagner was a little bit better.
Let me ask you this: if you maybe you don't remember, but who did Kiyomiya pin?
I
Wagner
don't recall now. I think
I'm interested in that.
I believe he pinned Wagner, but don't quote me on that. I think it was Wagner, but I don't recall exactly who it was. But yeah, if you can find that out, that'd be good info. And then the main event was Axis versus the fucking Shrek dude and Segura, and Axis won. And the problem was this went like 20 minutes. The good thing is like Shrek's stuff was pretty minimal, and it was basically Segura in there with Shiozaki and Nakajima, so you can't be too upset about it. But it was the same thing that you kind of said with those first nights. It's like, do I really need a 20-minute match right now in front of no fans? In a match that's not that, it's not great. It wasn't a great match. It was okay, but like at a certain point, you're like, all right, let's get on with it, guys. Like, let's just get, let's let somebody win.
20
and move
minutes.
On. Yeah, it was
Shrek,
excruciating long.
20 minutes with Shrek. Okay, how did Shrek hold his own? Or
no, not really. Like I said, he was, from my recollection of it, I watched it earlier today, earlier this morning. He was barely in. He was in for a few little spots here and there. Segura basically did the heavy lifting, and Segura can go for 20 minutes, of course, with Shiozaki and Nakajima. But yeah, it wasn't anything that you really need to go out of your way to check out, I don't think.
Okay, so then that leaves Night 5, which neither one of us watched. So Night 5, obviously, that Night 5 has 4 matches because they wanted to, have drama going into the last night and all that. So that's where everything got decided. So that's where I guess the big upset there was El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. and Rene Dupree upsetting Mochizuki and Marufuji. And that's how they moved on. And Axis beat Sekimoto and Inamura. So those ended up being the block deciders, the way that things shook out. So it sounds like I'm going to skip Night 4. That doesn't sound interesting to me.
Nah, I don't think there's anything you really need to watch in Night 4. So
I'm going to do Night 5. I'm going to watch those 2 matches. Yeah. 24 minutes for...
I know. I'm looking at that right now going, oof. Boy.
I don't know. Good. I mean, they're going to be... Look, these guys all beat the shit out of each other in this tournament. The effort's there.
Right.
No question about that. The problem is, as we learned with All Japan, I mean, keep that length down. That's the formula. It really is. Especially when your atmosphere is as dry as this is. Very similar to the WWE atmosphere. When you've got people around ringside, at least, you stand a chance with the longer match. We saw that with Kenny Omega and Trent. But that was kind of pushing it too. But I'll give Night 5 a shot. But we know the final. Now, when is the final? That I don't know.
That I have no clue. Yeah, I have no idea when that's scheduled. I don't see anything that says exactly when that was going to take place. But
can we do this before we wrap it up? I want you to, because I think this tournament, these team names were awesome. Did you see the team names? Hopefully you didn't. Let's go through them.
I don't think so. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's rank the team names from 1 to 10.
Okay.
10 being the coolest. Masaki Mochizuki and Naomichi Marufuji. Mochi Maru.
A
little lazy, right?
A little lazy, a little generic. I think with those two guys, very dynamic wrestlers, very good wrestlers, all-time greats. I think you could have done a little bit better than that, especially in Japan. I would take some bullshit-ass name like that from some shitty, US indie or whatever, but Japan's got a legacy of great tag team names. So that one so far is going to be pretty low. I'm going to put that at a 1 right now. So that's dead last right now, but it can move up. It can move. It's the first one, it could move up, but it's dead last.
I wasn't expecting a 1. Wow.
That's a terrible name.
You crushed it. I would have given it a 5. I think it's an average name. All right. Next up, Kaito Kiyomiya and the former Maybach Taniguchi. Unchains. Not Unchained.
Unchains.
Unchained.
I think it would have been a little bit higher if it was Unchained. Unchains is a little weird, but I can't knock it too much. It's going to go in the middle right now, so I'm going to put it at 5. Let me get a word pad out here so I can make sure I move these things up.
You're taking this seriously.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I want to. So what was it? The Mocha fucking...
Hey, give it a 1. Mocha Maru.
Mocha Maru. That sucks. That one's terrible. We'll go 5 on Unchains. And then, all right, cool. I got everyone else up there. Okay, all right.
You can't change them now. I'm not going. No.
Well, no, I'm gonna have to re-rank. I have to re-rank.
We're not ranking. We're just giving a number.
Oh, I thought you wanted these like
yeah,
one. Like I thought you wanted a 1 through 10 like ranking.
No,
okay.
Just 1 to 10 in coolness.
Oh,
That's
okay,
all.
cool. No, I'm fine then. I'm fine. 1 for Mochimeru, 5 for Unchained. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go 6 for Unchained and 5 for Mochimeru. Okay, Kano and Masakitamiya. It's the name of their unit, Congo.
I like it. It's pretty cool stuff. I'm gonna go 7 there.
Congo's a 7. I agree. So we've got Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. and Rene Dupree. They are Sugera Gun International.
I love it. 9.
Not just Sugera Gun. This is Sugera Gun International.
I love a good like World 1 International. I like when you add the even NWO Japan. I like the idea of like an offshoot of a stable. So yeah, I'm going to 9 there. I like a good international flavor there. So
I'll go 7 on that. So Go Shiozaki and Katsuhiko Nakajima, of course, are axes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool name. 8, I'd say. I mean, it's their normal name. I don't expect them to change or whatever, but 8, I'm giving a solid 8 there.
Kind of tired of it though, right? Like
a little dry, but yeah.
So Takashi Sugera and Shrek Sugera Gun, of course.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just ripping off Suzuki Gun?
Yeah, it does kind of. Yeah, it does.
Or is it just a Japanese thing where it's like?
It feels a little lazy though. Again, like they have such a great legacy of names like that you would assume that they would be a little bit better. So I'm gonna have to go 7 for that, unfortunately.
But just slapping the international on it makes it so much cooler.
It does. It really does. Yeah, Suzuki Gun International. Yeah, or Sugera Gun International is great because yeah, it's fucking El Hijo de Wagner Jr. and fucking Rene Dupree. It's awesome. It's unbelievable.
So Akitoshi Saito and Masao Inoue, the Anti-Wrestler Alliance.
10. I love it.
It's a great name. It's a great name for 2 guys who stink, right?
Right, exactly, because they are the anti-wrestlers, because they're fucking garbage, so it makes sense.
And here we go for Daisuke Sekimoto and Yoshiki Inamura. Muscle Toughness.
Oh, fucking 12.
That's a 10. That is such a Japanese team
10
name.
plus on that one. Yeah, that's what I want. When you give me fucking Mochi Meru or whatever, get the fuck out of here. I want Muscle Madness. I want,
muscle Toughness.
Or muscle, whatever. I want muscle and then a word after it, and then I'm good.
Right. Daisuke Sekimoto, any team he's on is going to be Muscle Toughness. It just exudes Daisuke Sekimoto.
Yeah, that dude, I would buy a shirt that's just him folding his massive arms and it just says Muscle Toughness underneath it. I'd buy that tomorrow.
Is it better or worse than Muscle Orchestra?
Oh no, that's the all time. That is the absolute the all time.
Nakanishi and Strongman John
Holy Demon
Anderson.
Army is pretty close, but man, Muscle Orchestra is great though. Because
I don't think you can top Holy Demon Army.
That one is tough, but that one you might want to retire. That one might just be in like such a pantheon that it like gets retired across the board. It's like the Jackie Robinson 42, you know. And then all other ones have to then sort of be, because you can't rank that one with every other one because it's just blowing everybody else out of the water.
Yeah, Holy Demon Army. You'd be hard pressed to top that. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I come up with a better one. And it just fit them too.
Yeah. Oh, it's perfect. The
guys that were in the group, like, it fit them too. But Muscle Toughness and Anti-Wrestler Alliance, I think those are the winners of this. I think I give them both a 10. I mean, yeah. Because they both fit the personality of the participants too.
Although muscle toughness or whatever, that's like fucking, that's a 19. You know what I mean? That's an elite level one for sure.
Can't you see Masao Inoue with that dumb smirk he always has on his face?
The Anti-Wrestler Alliance,
calling himself the Anti-Wrestler Alliance.
Yeah,
because he always has that dumb smirk on his face.
Yeah, he's terrible
with those stupid sideburns. And his soft body, like it fits him, the Anti-Wrestler Alliance thing, you know. But that's the NOAH Global Tag League. I guess we don't know when the final is. I guess when we figure out when they're going to have the damn thing, we'll watch it. We'll talk about it. So
there you go. That's it. We're done. Yeah, we're done. So thank you everybody for listening. Of course, the $10 tier. Folks, thank you for listening live and sticking with us live. This was I know kind of a short notice show, but it was like you and I like texting each other of like, we kind of have to get something going today. It's like we couldn't come up with the time exactly tomorrow. We couldn't come up with exactly the time Friday, and with everything going on today, we were just like, we got to get something going on here. So I think it was cool. So
I'm gonna go fuck now.
There you go. All right. Kids or no kids? Well, you still have the kids there, or are the kids gone for?
When the kids are gone, I'm going to get all the gimmicks out of the top drawer. You got to get the top drawer gimmicks out, right?
Let's see what the weather in college. So I'm fascinated about the outdoor fucking here. So one second, let's see what your weather's looking like for the weekend. This is Friday, right? That you're free.
I never said I'm going to fuck outside. This
was rain. Uh oh. I mean, not that would stop you. It might be even sexier, but looks like you're good until 3. So you get the outdoor fucking going until 3, and then looks like you'll be all right.
I never committed to the outdoor.
I'm just saying if you were going to. You
asked me if I ever have. That was different than are you going to?
Oh, okay. Well, are you going to?
I'd say probably not.
Okay,
but I can't make any promises.
Well, I mean, now that the house is open to you guys, it's not like you're bored of the house. Like, the house is open to you guys now. Type thing. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, if the mood strikes, I'll bang outside.
Okay,
I don't know.
All right, yeah, let's go.
We're kind of wild, you never know what's going to happen over here. Wrap it up, Rich.
Happy anniversary, Joe. Anyway, we'll talk to you guys next time. VoicesOfWrestling.com. VoicesOfWrestling.com/Discord, of course, for our Discord channel. And then again, thank you guys so much for subscribing to the $10 tier. If you're listening to this live, VoicesOfWrestling.com/Patreon. If you're listening to this on demand and you want to listen to it live, you can do that. VoicesOfWrestling.com/Patreon. $10 tier. The $5 tier stuff is not stopping either. Plenty of content coming out for that as well. TV reviews, recaps, all that sort of stuff is coming. So anyway, that is it for us. For Joe Lanza, I'm Rich Craich. See you guys next time on the Voice of Wrestling Flagship Podcast. Take care.